welcome to NBC's special coverage as we come on the air tonight on a huge primary night in America. I'm Hallie Jackson in Washington.
And I'm Kristen Welker. Votes in 5 states casting ballots today in one of the last major primary nights of the year to decide who will be on the ballot in November and ultimately which party will control Congress.
It is just after 9 p.m. on the East Coast, and the last polls have just closed in Michigan like 30 seconds ago. And this is the biggie tonight. This is home to the marquee matchup of the evening, the one that we're going to be watching all night long. And we do have a characterization in this critical race between establishment-backed Democratic Congresswoman Hallie Stevens and progressive Abdul Sayed. No surprise to you, too early to call. It is certainly too early to do that with just 6% of the vote in. But we will say that some of the early returns suggest that it's El Sayed who has the momentum here, Kristen.
Yeah, we could not be watching this race more closely, Hallie. This Senate race is must-win for Democrats in November if they want to retake control of the Senate. Whoever wins tonight will go up against former Republican Congressman Mike Rogers in November. He has President Trump's endorsement and was running unopposed tonight.
Do you know who's watching all of this alongside us? The man who's going to be checking in on every single piece of data coming in from Michigan all night long. There he is, Steve Kornacki, posted up at the big board. Steve, give us a sense of how this one's playing out so far.
Yeah, I mean, a big thing just happened literally in the last 30 seconds, so why don't we start right there? This is the statewide tally. We think 16% of the vote is now counted. That was at 6% until about 30 seconds ago when this happened. Holy cow. Oakland County, this is the second biggest county in the state, like 16% of all the vote in the primaries coming out of here. And we just got more than half the vote from Oakland County in one fell swoop. And you can see here that Hallie Stevens is leading that over Abdul El-Sayed by 2 points. Now, the important context for this is a lot of this we think is vote by mail. That's typically what has come first in Oakland County. Now, this is going to be a little weedsy here, but this is important because it's the trend that's been revealing itself as these results have been coming into tonight and in these past primaries that we've been seeing. The vote by mail tends to be older. It tends to be older voters, tends to be more establishment friendly. It tends to be more favorable to a candidate like Stevens. That is what we're seeing in other counties around the state tonight. She does her best with the vote by mail. And so she does have the advantage over Al Sayed with this big batch that just came in. But I would say it's only a 2-point advantage with what we think is sort of the best type of vote for her. What other type of vote is there? Well, Election Day vote, folks who went to the polls and voted in person today. And what we've been seeing throughout the rest of Michigan tonight and what we've been seeing across this primary season is that Election Day vote tends to be younger voters, more progressive voters. The fuel for these sort of left-wing candidacies that have won in these Democratic primaries has come in that Election Day vote, meaning that's the vote. We've seen it across Michigan so far that's more friendly to Al Sayed. And so, Stevens, this is a county. This isn't just any county. There's 83 on the map. This is one of paramount importance to her. She has to win Oakland County tonight. She has to win it by, I'd say, a substantial margin. She leads by 2 points with 60% of the vote in. But if that remaining vote that's going to be coming in here is the Election Day vote that's as pro-Al Sayed as we've been seeing elsewhere, the opportunity for him to pass her here and for her not to get that kind of number she needs out of Oakland, I think is very real, because I think that's really been the story that we've seen. As I zoom back out here and look at the statewide total, 17% right now. Al Sayed with that 8-point advantage. He has been absolutely cleaning up with the Election Day vote. Stevens has been holding her own with the vote by mail. Some of these big counties that have reported, a place like this right here, decent-sized Eaton County, decent-sized Livingston County, exurbs of Detroit right here. We do think the Stevens number might improve as that absentee vote comes in, that vote by mail comes in right now. And I just see some more sagging. I thought there might be a little bit more there. I apologize for that. But the bottom line is that Oakland number, well, it is higher for Stevens than it is for Al Sayed. Is it as high as Stevens wants it to be?
So Steve, and I've been talking to folks with the Al Sayed campaign. To your point, they have been laser focused on this same day vote, specifically looking at younger voters, African-American voters. So take us inside some of the counties where those votes are reflected. Wayne County, I know, slow to vote. We're probably not going to get that for a little while. But what are you seeing so far? Any indication about those two constituencies?
Well, yeah, Wayne County, we have very little. There's a little bit here from the city of Detroit that's come in right now. That's the one hope, I think, for Stevens in Wayne County, where we have seen in polls that she's been doing better than El Sayed with black voters. The city of Detroit is 75% black. It is in Wayne County. It's not all of Wayne County. There are other parts of Wayne County that I think are very fertile ground for El Sayed. But the opportunity there for Stevens, if she really is getting a big number among black voters, you would really see that in Detroit, and that could help her there in Wayne County. But you ask, too, about younger voters, and take a look next door in Washtenaw County. This is Ann Arbor. This is the University of Michigan. I keep saying University of Michigan. This is also Eastern Michigan University. I don't want to leave them out. But Al Sayed here, look at this, up nearly 40 points in Washtenaw County. And I think this one's significant. This is a big piece of the puzzle, too. It's a little bit more than 5% of all the votes cast statewide are going to come out of Washtenaw County. And this is the kind of place where if you're Stevens, I think you knew going into the night you were not going to win Washtenaw County because of what we're talking about, college, young, all of that sort of thing. But you want to hold your own. You need to tread water. You need to be running at like 45%, 44%. Other candidates who are sort of like establishment candidates in Democratic primaries in Michigan who've been successful, that's what they've done in Washtenaw County. She's barely breaking 30% right there. And there's still a lot there left in Washtenaw County that could be very friendly to Al Sayed. So that's, between what we just showed you in Oakland County and what you're seeing there in Washtenaw County, we haven't really even touched Wayne yet because we don't have much. But those numbers, if you're Stevens, I think in both places, you might be looking for a bigger number than you're seeing right now.
All right, Steve, do not go far. We're, of course, going to come back to you every few minutes throughout the night. Every minute. Yeah, Steve, thank you so much for starting us off. And, of course, we will keep everyone updated on his updates as well.
As we said, I mean, this is the biggie. This Michigan Democratic Senate race, it's a really big test for the power of the progressive movement in a state like Michigan. Swing state. President Trump won it back in 2024. And there's a lot of the divides inside the Democratic Party playing out in this race, right? Moderate versus progressive. Establishment versus anti-establishment. The debate over American support for Israel. It's really not, Kristen, I think, overhyped or overwrought to say that what happens here is going to tell us a lot about where Democrats and how Democrats compete in states like Michigan in the midterms.
Yeah, purple states, Hallie, not overstated at all. And the Senate race isn't the only race we're watching in Michigan. There's also a governor's race there this November to replace the term-limited Democratic governor, Gretchen Whitmer. On the Democratic side, NBC News can project that the current Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, has won that race. No surprise there. She was far and away the front runner. And on the Republican side, Congressman John James has President Trump's endorsement, but he's facing off against Perry Johnson, who has spent a lot of his own money on this race. That race right now is too early to call. But again, John James does have the president's endorsement, not insignificant.
We're looking at these 4 battleground seats in Michigan, too, where the candidates will be decided tonight. 3 of them Republican held. Lock that map into your memory, folks, because these are some of the districts we'll be watching really closely in November. The path for Democrats to win back the House runs through districts like these. Yeah,
let's head over to Kansas, where the polls just closed and where Republicans think they have their best chance to flip a governor's mansion in November. State Senate President Ty Masterson, who has President Trump's endorsement in the Republican primary, NBC News can project that he will be the winner of that race, again endorsed by President Trump. On the Democratic side, State Senator Cindy Holscher is running in the progressive anti-establishment lane against the more moderate State Senator Ethan Corson. That race right now is too close to call. Corson has won the endorsement of the governor there. But notable, again, we're seeing that moderate progressive divide, Hallie.
Well, talk about the moderate progressive divide. Big call to make here in Missouri. This is really interesting, one that a lot of people have been watching. This rematch between Congressman Wesley Bell, the incumbent, and former Congresswoman Cori Bush, progressive. Look, we are projecting now Wesley Bell wins that district in Missouri. Bell way outspending Bush's campaign. He had been backed by Hakeem Jeffries, for example. She was backed by Senator Bernie Sanders. So an interesting one at play here. We're going to be talking more about that one as we look at all of the results coming in tonight with all of our teams that are out in the field basically everywhere. We've got Julie Sirkin. We've got Sahil Kapoor. We've got our local reporters fanned out across the country in these key states that we're watching tonight. Of course, look at that. Adam and Steve doing their thing there at the big board. We're going to have plenty from them coming up throughout the night as we take a look at these races. Again, vote is coming in basically every second. So we're going to be getting into all of it with our team who's here with us in the studio, too. Our chief Capitol Hill correspondent, Ryan Nobles, is with us. Our chief White House correspondent, Garrett Hake, as well. And Kristen mentioned some of these candidates on the Republican side endorsed by President Trump. You got to think the White House is as locked in on tonight as the rest of us are.
Yeah, they're watching this closely. President Trump was just in Michigan a week ago campaigning alongside John James and Mike Rogers. These are folks who, in Rogers' case, shared the ticket with Trump in 2024 and significantly underperformed the president. So they're going to need a presidential boost here. And I think they also, by the way, and we'll get much deeper into this as we go along, they're among the people rooting for Abdul El-Sayed here tonight. They want to try to use a candidate on the left to turn out base voters who might not vote without Donald Trump on the top line.
Yeah, so Ryan, pick up on that point, because this is the big debate right now inside the Democratic, quite frankly, inside the Republican Party as well. If Abdul El-Sayed can pull out a victory tonight, is he in fact able to beat Mike Rogers in a general election? Mike Rogers says he's feeling pretty good if it's El-Sayed, but the implications of that, could that have a boomerang effect?
Yeah, the Democrats that I talk to, at least the establishment Democrats that I talk to, they are not excited about the idea of Abdul El-Sayed being their nominee, but they're also not freaking out about it. I think every time you talk to a Democrat about the midterms, everything comes back to Donald Trump's approval rating. And they say that in many respects, all of these Democratic candidates are going to be running against that 30% approval rating, particularly the candidates that have been endorsed by Donald Trump. And almost every candidate that makes it to a general election has been endorsed by Donald Trump. So they feel like even though someone like El-Sayed might be able to be tagged a bit easier with the socialism, quickly into communism moniker, whether or not that's true or not, by the White House and Republicans, they don't think it's enough to overcome the baggage that's being carried by these Republican candidates when it comes to the White House and the administration.
But what's also so interesting here is this, what we're talking about right at its core is this issue of electability here. And who's gonna be able to win in a general election, because Democrats obviously want to be taking back the House and the Senate. And I was interested, one of our team members, I think it was Julie actually, who we'll talk to, got an interview with this voter who basically was like, yeah, I'm voting for the progressive candidate here. And if the progressive candidate doesn't win, I'm not voting for the moderate, not voting for Hallie Stevens. I'm just sitting out, right? And so that's one of the dynamics at play.
This is core to how we define electability. Like, electability as an issue is like who you think other people are going to vote for, not necessarily who you want to vote for. The progressive movement right now is saying, the hell with that. Let's vote for the people who have something that we believe in. And El-Sayed has positioned himself as that candidate, as the guy who's going to go out there and say, not just against Donald Trump, but I'm for getting money out of politics. I'm for Medicare for all. I'm going to put these things on the table and basically dare the more moderate Democrats to sit back and vote or not vote at all when the future is on the line. That's his bet. And I think you can make the argument, ask Vice President Harris how easy it is to win in a state like Michigan when you've turned off the left. Abdul El-Sayed is making that other play here, saying, I'll get the moderates back because they want to beat Donald Trump, but I can bring the progressives.
There's also this question of, the uniqueness of the candidate in and of itself, right? Somebody like Abdul El-Sayed, who's, people praise the fact that he can be very authentic. He comes across as having a lot of charisma and all this and that, has done a lot of public appearances.
Authenticity.
Yeah, that's right. We talk all the time about authenticity.
That was part of Donald Trump's.
That's exactly right. And that's, you see voters craving that, really. But you can't paint every progressive candidate or every moderate.
Candidate quality goes far beyond just where they sit on every policy position. I mean, we've seen there was an example today in the Wisconsin's governor's race about a progressive candidate who probably falls in line with many of the same things that Abdul El-Sayed have a very rocky interview where she was forced to defend her suggestion that we should cancel Thanksgiving. That's not a position you're ever going to find Abdul El-Sayed in. He is very well spoken. He understands the issues, but he also understands a way to articulate positions that may not necessarily be mainstream in a way that you could make the argument that they should be mainstream. Medicare for All is a perfect example. When I first started covering Bernie Sanders, Medicare for All was a radical position. The idea that the government would pay for everyone's health care was something that Republicans went to great pains to paint people as socialists. Obviously, Obamacare became super controversial as a result of that. By the time the next election rolled around, it was a price of entry into the Democratic primary field. It will probably be a price of entry going forward. Medicare for All is no longer a radical position. In many ways, it is the position of the Democratic Party, and it's increasingly becoming in a position of many Americans, both moderate and Democrat.
Okay, well, guys, let's hit the pause button. We want to go out to Sahil,
That's right,
who is at Wesley Bell's headquarters, where, again, as Hallie just said, NBC News is projecting that he has won his rematch against Cori Bush. What's the reaction there, Sahil?
Well, Kristen, I'm at Wesley Bell headquarters here in St. Louis. He has won the race. We've called it for him. There's no sign of him. His campaign hasn't reacted. I'm not sure they were prepared for how quickly this was going to be called. They had been confident. They had felt good all day. And I spoke to Wesley Bell earlier when he voted, earlier today in the voting booth. But I don't know that they expected this kind of a crushing victory. We actually broke the news to one member of his team that Wesley Bell had been projected the winner by our decision desk. So this is quite a remarkable victory. Look at the numbers on the screen there. About 45 points, if I'm doing my math right. There's still plenty of vote to come, but Cori Bush was not able to keep this close, even though she did have a message that has resonated in other safe blue districts in the country with Democratic voters. She called for cutting off U.S. funding, U.S. aid to Israel. Wesley Bell, this is a real contrast. He voted to protect it just recently in the House of Representatives. Cori Bush also sees her role as a bit more of an activist. When she was in the House, she was part of the squad that pressured Democratic leadership from the left. Wesley Bell has been much more aligned with Democratic leadership. So the Cori Bush message didn't work here, and I'll give you one potential hint as to why. She was dominated on the airwaves by Wesley Bell and his allies by 27-1, according to Ad Impact. Even if she had the message, she didn't have the money to get it out, it seems.
Well, it is fascinating. And again, one of the big progressive versus moderate matchups. And again, a rematch. So it was significant, and she had the endorsement of Senator Sanders. All right, Sahil, thank you so much for that.
And so interesting to see. You can tell it's, rather quiet, subdued crowd for this particular moment. They're like taking it in. Let me go back to Steve at the big board now, because Steve, listen, decisive for Wesley Bell in that district as you're watching that one too.
Yeah, it's interesting because I remember being here 2 years ago in this primary when Bell went after Bush. That was a very close race here. Bush, obviously, her affiliation with the squad, she'd been a national figure. And the story of that race 2 years ago is this district is split between St. Louis, the city of St. Louis, and then right over here, these are the inner suburbs of St. Louis County, some of them St. Louis County. And the story then had been Bell was strong in St. Louis County, Bush was strong in the city of St. Louis. But take a look at what we're seeing so far. St. Louis County, no big surprise. Bell getting more than 3/4 of the vote right there. But go over to the city of St. Louis and you see Bell ahead. It's not as decisive, but you do see a solid margin. At least this is early vote. The final margin may end up not being quite this dominant here. Bush may do better. I think she will do better with the Election Day vote. But you see it extending across county lines. And this split with the early vote is not something you saw in 2024 when these two candidates ran against each other and Bell won in a close race. And so, it kind of bucks the trend that we've been seeing. How many primary nights have we been up here, particularly in city districts? Philadelphia, Washington, D.C. in the mayoral election there, Denver, New York City. That's where we've been seeing these sort of left-wing candidacies succeed, topple incumbents. Here, the formula didn't work. Bush doing worse than she did 2 years ago when she lost the seat, and Bell, certainly the establishment candidate here, based on his endorsements, his backing in this campaign, securing his seat.
Question tonight, Steve. Would we see a sweep for progressive candidates? Would there be a patchwork? This is certainly a loss for progressives, for Senator Bernie Sanders, who endorsed her. And, of course, the big race, the big marquee race that we are watching, the Michigan Senate race. Bring us up to speed there. What's the very latest you're seeing? Yeah,
let's take a look back up in Michigan. And I'm going to just have to go to a house race. Okay, so, again, about 20% of the vote here is in statewide. This looks about what it looked like the last time we checked in terms of the margin there for Al Sayed over Stevens. I think there's a lot here. I'll zoom in on Wayne County. So Wayne County, where Detroit is, you'll hear me say this a lot tonight. A fifth of the vote statewide is coming out of Wayne. We only have 2% of the vote right now, so there's not much to be read into that. What there is from Detroit, largely from Detroit, what you're looking at right now. But Wayne, keep in mind, is not just Detroit, okay? There are inner suburbs in here. There's also, this is where Dearborn is. Dearborn is the first majority Arab American city in the United States. There's 110,000 residents in Dearborn. Abdul Sayed ran for governor in 2018. He won Dearborn big. Dearborn Heights, very similar demographically. That's in here. Hamtramck, that's a majority Muslim city. That's a place where al-Sayed did very well in 2018. They are all also in Wayne County. There's also a lot of other places in here, too. So there's a diversity in here. In some of those cities, I expect al-Sayed to do very well tonight. But the opportunity, and this may take a while for us to see, and we'll see how it shakes out in other places around the state if it comes to it. But the opportunity for Stevens, we're saying, is in the city of Detroit, because the polling has been indicating that black support is very strong for her. And we said Detroit is 3/4 black. And this is an opportunity. If she can run up the score in Detroit among black voters, she could get a big number out of there. She could get a big number out of Wayne County. That could carry her a long way. In terms of looking at where black support really can swing, a primary, or at least loom large in a primary, there aren't a ton of counties where there's a very significant black population. Another place we'll look tonight, though, that does have a pretty large black population is Genesee County. This is where the city of Flint is. We don't have any votes coming in right there yet. There is a substantial black population in Saginaw, too. We don't have many votes coming in right there. So from Stevens' standpoint, we'll be looking at those places, but really going to be looking at Detroit as the night progresses, because I do think it's been interesting in some of these counties, the degree to which we're seeing this difference between the Election Day vote and how overwhelming it's going for al-Sayed and that vote by mail, and how strong that's going for Stevens. In a place like this, I'm just checking in because we're slowly getting more and more updates here. What's been happening in this county, this is sort of the suburbs of Lansing here, outside of Lansing. A little bit of Lansing's in here, too, but it's largely outside Lansing. This number for Stevens has been ticking up all night because basically what happened was they counted the Election Day vote. Al-Sayed got a huge number on here. Now, as the vote by mail has been coming in, as this percent in has been ticking up, so has Stevens' number. And so what we were looking at the start of the night here were numbers for Stevens that were like, whoa, these are, I don't see how she could win with these numbers. But if this number can continue to tick up for her, that could get interesting out of a place like Eaton County. Also, same thing here. The same thing has been happening in Livingston County. This is the fastest growing, one of the fastest growing counties in Michigan. It's big. There's like 200,000 people here. This is like the exurbs of Detroit right here. Okay. It's very high income too. We expected Stevens, to have maybe an opportunity here to do well. Well, she looked like she was getting clobbered early because we got the Election Day vote was counted right away. Al-Sayed went way ahead. But as the vote by mail has been coming in, getting more vote in, and that Stevens number has been ticking up more and more, where it's not looking as much for her like the disaster it initially did. And so to the extent that can continue in places like that, and another place we're looking here is around Grand Rapids, I say Saginaw, to the extent that can continue, that's a huge question. It heightens the stakes for what I just outlined in Detroit.
Okay, Steve Kornacki, we will check back in with you in just a few minutes in that hotly contested race.
What's so interesting here, too, Welks and team, is the risk of painting with the broad brush, right? If you look at this race in Michigan, you look at where Abdul Sayed is right now, at least in some of the numbers. We'll see how the night goes for him. But you look at Jocelyn Benson in the governor's race, right? Like a very different kind of candidate who's also gotten, we've projected that race, statewide support. You look at somebody Jocelyn Benson has backed in Michigan 11. We've just actually projected that Jeremy Moss is going to win that seat, or win that primary, I should say. This is a, +9 Democratic district. So it's one that was sort of interesting in the primary, establishment versus anti-establishment, et cetera. His opponent had been backed by Ro Khanna, for example, somebody who you run into in the halls of Congress often. So I do think it all speaks to this idea that, there are many flavors of Democrat, right, that we're seeing sort of unfold tonight.
I also think it's still early looking at these numbers, but I think it's instructing us that al-Sayed is a unique candidate unto himself. He might not necessarily be reflective of a movement as much as he is someone that's made a connection with the voters of Michigan. Because I have to tell you, I was talking to some Republican congressional consultants today who were hopeful that al-Sayed's coattails were going to bring along these more controversial, DSA-aligned, progressive candidates in these House races. And so far, that's just not manifesting itself. They were hopeful that the progressive would win in the 10th congressional district. They believe Lawrence had a shot at winning Bill Lawrence had a shot at winning in what is going to be a very tight race as well. That's just not happening. And so what that tells you is that people are going into the voting booths. They're voting for al-Sayed at the top of the ticket, but then they're picking a more mainstream candidate further down the ballot.
I do think it's worth just taking a step back and putting this into the broader context.
Step us back, Kristen. What do we got? What do you got?
Senator Sanders has endorsed a number of candidates tonight. This is his first loss, the fact that Cori Bush lost. But I believe we have a graphic of the 4 different candidates that he's endorsed. So al-Sayed, obviously Garrett being one of the biggest names that we're watching, but William Lawrence, what's going to happen with that race? And this idea of candidate, the quality of the candidate, not just what they're running on, not just their platform.
Endorsements can only take you so far. I mean, Bernie Sanders has put his imprimatur on dozens of candidates over the last couple of years, some very quickly forgotten when they lose. The Missouri race, I think, is a good example of this. Cori Bush, we were watching that race very closely for the progressive versus establishment thing, but I covered Cori Bush in Congress. She was plagued by scandal during her time on Capitol Hill. She had a number of issues related to her husband, related to investigations into her. That kind of stuff.
Some like constituent service questions.
Yeah, like that local, kind of stuff still matters, right? So it can be very easy to paint with an overly broad brush from a national perspective, when in the district where they're watching these people much more closely than we are, there are long memories about those kinds of issues too.
And the other thing in that race that I think is important to point out, in many of these progressive insurgency campaigns, what's one of the most common barometers of the establishment pick that is toppled? Often the incumbent. It's an age issue.
Well, so that's
not the issue with Wesley Bell. He is young. He is, by all standards, aside from the Israel issue, I know he had AIPAC support, but by all standards, he is a progressive candidate and a progressive member of Congress. His voting record is very progressive, and he is young and has a deep connection with the people of that district. So, as we said, kind of the theme, I think, that we're emerging here tonight is that there isn't a monolith here. And even within progressive voters.
Can we pull up that Sanders graphic again, the one that shows who Sanders endorsed? Because it was an interesting one here, right? Because you've got Abdul Sayed, obviously, we're watching that one. We're going to go to our teams on the ground, I know, in a second on that. You've got Cori Bush, but like the Will Lawrence race, you could argue there are other factors at play as well there, like 2 candidates kind of splitting that more centrist lane. Generationally, Donovan McKinney, there's another piece of that. You know, it's age, not just, I think, it would be fair to say, like the age gap, not simply the progressivism there. So there's other pieces at
play. And also
play.
Connecting with the district. I mean, Donovan McKinney is running in a majority black district that does not have a majority black representative. It's Sri Denader is the sitting member there.
And he's sort of broken with progressives.
That's right.
In a very
there's a number of issues.
interesting
He's sort of an iconoclastic member of Congress, I think, if I could say so.
He's also extremely wealthy, which doesn't necessarily
hurt, right? Exactly. It's a complicated thing.
Yeah.
Rashida Tlaib is very involved in defeating the Democrat next door. I mean, she wants McKinney to win that race. She's been a big player. There are these other factors. The Lawrence race is interesting, too, because there you have a race where there are 2 more moderate candidates potentially splitting the vote, who, by the way, when you look at all 3 of those candidates on paper, like Democrats would probably love to have all 3 of those candidates run in places where they could win. Those are very impressive candidates. You have a former Navy SEAL. You have a former ambassador. Right? You have very serious people running in that district. And only one of them can be the Democratic nominee. And that's the way, it falls with these maps sometimes. But, again, there are layers to these issues and to all of these primaries.
And I actually interviewed 2 of them today. And they
what
all
a flex,
said,
girl. Tell us more. Come on.
Well, I say that because they all say they will support each other. They've pledged to support. I mean, to Garrett's point, like, they've pledged to support each other no matter what happens.
There does appear to be much more unity within the Democratic Party at the end of all of this. Particularly, certainly the moderate candidates have been much more gracious in their support, but it does feel as though everybody wants to come back together after this is over.
Are you going to say the same thing? I'm going to say, look at Mallory.
I don't know, should we count to 3 and say it at the same time?
I can't wait.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Mallory McMorrow.
Oh,
yes!
my God.
I did not plan that, folks. That is real live television magic here. Yes. Do you want to do it or should I?
Go for it.
Okay. Mallory McMorrow, who was a Democratic Senate candidate, of course, here in Michigan, has pledged to tonight endorse the person who wins in this primary.
I think to be there, to show up
and to
their victory.
show up. She's like sitting in her car, full of gas, ready to go.
Not sitting in her car
I don't know what she's doing right now. She's drinking a Celsius. She's getting amped up, and she has said she will endorse the winner tonight. I mean, that kind of thing.
As opposed to getting involved in the primary.
It is
Exactly.
It's such an important point because there is a real question for Democrats after this race, which has been bruising about how they are going to unify. And so that's a really significant point. We do want to go to the ground now in Michigan, where NBC's Shaquille Brewster is at Al Sayed's headquarters. NBC's Julie Sirkin, who's at Stevens' headquarters. Shaq, let's go to you first. What's the reaction been so far there?
Well, I'll tell you, this is a room full of people who are full of anticipation. They are expecting to win tonight. There are a lot of young people here, a lot of people who are here for hours for what they believe will be a celebration. And I think when you talk to folks here, I also heard the same sentiment at the polling locations when I talked to people who voted for Al Sayed. They say that this is bigger than just one Senate seat. They see this as something that will lead to change. There's anger out there. There are people who complained about the rising prices, who complained about the gas prices as they were heading to the polls. One guy saying that he filled up his tank and it was, quote, stupid expensive for him, and that's what led him to cast his ballot. And people here are saying the ideas that Al Sayed has been pushing, that he's been campaigning on, ideas like Medicare for all, abolishing ICE, ending military aid to Israel. These folks here do not feel as if those are extreme ideas. In fact, they feel that their representatives aren't representing their ideas right now, that they're not getting fair representation with members of Congress right now. So that is the mood, that is the sentiment that you hear on the ground. I should also note that when I talked to Al Sayed yesterday, it was right before his final campaign event. There was a lot of confidence that you heard in his voice. He barely mentioned Hallie Stevens. He instead directed all of his fire at Mike Rogers. Instead of talking about it being the night before the election, he was talking about 13 weeks being the marker for when the general election is. This is a campaign and a candidate that has his eyes on the general election, expecting that he will get through tonight fairly easily, guys.
All right, well, we'll watch how it all unfolds. Shaq, thank you.
Let me go to Julie Sirkin, who's live for us at Stevens headquarters. And having conversations with folks who are close to the Stevens campaign, they really feel like she's got to run up the table with black voters, support from them. They think that older voters turning out for her, this is what it's going to come down to here. And they're really locked in on that.
They are super locked in on that, and they have been the entire campaign. In fact, earlier in this campaign, a source close to it told me that they're not even trying to get those progressive voters. They feel like they're ungettable. We are in campaign HQ for Hallie Stevens. This is actually the side room where all of her supporters and volunteers are. She's going to be speaking maybe in the room next to me where I'm at here. When you talk about the vibe in the room, I mean, you can kind of tell how it is, but the bar is full. People are in line, a lot of drinks around. The giant cheese board that they have across from me is pretty much untouched, so people may be too nervous to eat. But this is basically the scene here. You got Hallie Stevens, who needs those supporters. She needs the black vote. She needs the woman, especially in the suburbs. She's got a problem with progressives, as you heard from Shaq. I asked her yesterday, if you do win the primary, how do you reach across? How do you get those voters to show up for you? Because, Hallie, I talked to a number of Al Sayed supporters. They are not guaranteed in backing Hallie up if she is the victorious tonight. And she told me that she's going to do it the Michigan way. She didn't really have a clear answer to that. The energy here, you see it. You see what's going on behind me. They're eating, they're drinking, they're watching the results come in on the screens. They have networks on, watching it very, very closely. There were a couple of cheers, a couple of oohs and ahs and applause when some of those early votes came in that Steve was telling you about. But all of this now is anticipation. You know, this is the moment where the campaigns thank their volunteers, their supporters. Hallie, that's really what we're seeing in this room here. And certainly they are hoping that she makes it to that next step, but only time will tell.
Okay, my takeaway from that, plenty of drinks flowing, not a lot of cheese being eaten. We will see how the evening unfolds on that. Julie, thank you very much.
All right, let's go back to Steve Kornacki at the big board. So, Steve, you're getting some new numbers in from Oakland County. What are you seeing? Yeah,
so now take a look here. The biggie here, we've got 70% of the vote in. Remember, it was 60% all at once the last time we checked in. We just got another 10%. And the bottom line is it looks like it did before here with Stevens with, a little bit less than a 2-point advantage over Al Sayed. We're trying to figure out, this is what it comes to in Michigan primaries, trying to discern exactly what type of vote you're looking at. We've been talking about that vote by mail being so friendly to Stevens, that election day vote being so friendly to Al Sayed. I think one of the things we're seeing here in Oakland County is a mix of these two types of votes here. So they've each had some favorable batches that have been part of this. And actually, sorry, if you're watching, I want to explain what just happened. This number that was at 70% in just came down to 67%. Why is that? It's because this is an estimate that our decision desk makes of how many votes total are going to be cast. Obviously, we don't know in advance how many people are going to turn out on Election Day and vote. So our decision desk is making that estimate, and they will adjust it as returns come in. It can be adjusted up or down slightly. And what just happened was it got adjusted down slightly, meaning that our decision desk thinks that there are more votes there will end up being more votes cast in Oakland County than they thought at the start of the night, than they thought going into tonight. That's what that means, to knock that down from 70 to 67%. That might mean higher turnout here on Election Day.
Just because the folks in the peanut gallery have a question for you on this. As you're explaining that, does that mean that turnout is more than was projected? Is that the TLDR on that?
Yeah, that's what that could mean, and that's what we're seeking to get clarification on. But that's often what that means, yes.
That's interesting.
Okay, that's interesting.
That is interesting. So, Steve, just recap big picture. You got Oakland County. Any other counties with any more vote count since we last checked in with you?
Yeah, the other big batch we just got was next door in Washtenaw County. It was next door in Washtenaw County. I'm showing you Livingston. We're up to about 2/3 of the vote. Remember, Ann Arbor right here, sort of the liberal heart of Michigan. And Stevens' numbers, we talked about this in other counties. Stevens' numbers have been ticking up in a lot of places where you're getting that vote by mail counted later. She's now running at about 33% right here. I think a benchmark for Stevens, a fair benchmark for her, she wants to be getting this into the 40s. She wants to, she has room here for this number to come up. She's doing okay, better with the vote by mail. But it's got to come up, I think, more for her right here. But we knew going in that Al Sayed, this was going to be one of the best counties, if not the best county in the state for him. It's just that the establishment candidates like Stevens, they typically have been able to, kind of tread water here, not get totally submerged. But that Stevens number was at about 28% when we first got numbers at the start of the night from Washtenaw. It's now worked its way up to about 33%. So, again, what that nets out to, 21%. We think a little bit more than a fifth of the vote has been counted statewide, and Al Sayed there with that 7-point advantage. And as I say, the huge, in addition to everything else that's not filled in right here, we have next to nothing out of Wayne.
Well, and we're gonna have, buckle in. Ben.
Yes.
We got a minute before we're going to get more from them, right? So
we're patient. We're patiently waiting for Wayne.
Steve Kornacki, appreciate you. Thank you. We're going to check back in with you in just a second.
Yeah, we're also following some key results out of Virginia, which has multiple battleground districts that could determine control of Congress come November. In Virginia's first congressional district, NBC News projects Shannon Taylor has won that crowded Democratic primary. She will take on the incumbent Republican Congressman Rob Whitman. And in the Democratic primary for Virginia's 2nd congressional district, NBC News can project former Congresswoman Elaine Luria has won that race as she looks to win back her seat. Incumbent Republican Congresswoman Jen Kiggans defeated her back in 2022. The two now head to a rematch in that battleground district. And joining me now is Republican Congresswoman Jen Kiggans of Virginia. Thanks so much for being here. We really appreciate it. So take us inside your strategy. Looks like you've got a rematch on your hands. What's your strategy going to be to win?
It'll be the same strategy we had in 22. There was a reason that the Virginia voters fired Elaine Luria back in 22. And one of the biggest reasons was because of her insider stock trading. She made $21 million during her 4 years in Congress. I have voted multiple times to ban insider stock trading. She went as far as saying that members of Congress should be able to inside stock trading. So that's one of the biggest things. I think you'll see the shift, and you just were talking about the shift in the Democratic Party to the far left, to the socialist side of the House. And when we look at what that brings to the plate and what the policies that the socialists are supporting between, open borders, defunding law enforcement, defunding the military, letting prisoners go, transgender surgeries for minors. There's all kinds of reasons that Americans should really be scared right now in watching the progression of the Democrats move to the left. And, I've had the privilege of representing this district for 4 years in Congress. I served in the state Senate for 3. I'm a Navy veteran. I'm a mom of 4. I'm a former geriatric nurse practitioner as well. So just understanding what this district needs and working so hard on those priorities to make sure we get government out of people's lives and keep their tax burden low, and thinking about the cost. I'm a mom who runs a family and things are expensive. We can acknowledge that. But we have a military to support, veterans to support, healthcare to fix. There's a lot more work to do. And I have the privilege of having served for 4 years, look forward to continuing to do that.
Let me ask you this, and you talk about your, obviously, Navy service. Your opponent has a Navy service as well in a district with a big military population. When it comes to this district, President Trump, I think it was just yesterday, said that you have his complete and total endorsement. So a full-throated endorsement for you from the president. Is that an endorsement you welcome?
And so I'll say, we're always grateful for any endorsements, especially when it comes from conservative leadership. But we run this district off of our record, off of the policies that I support, off of my priorities. Yes, I support the military as a military spouse, as a military mom, as a military veteran. I know this district, veteran issues are important to us, but there's so many other districts. We have other issues. We have businesses to support. We have families to keep safe. We have a border to keep secure. We need to keep government out of people's lives. So we run off of our record and the work that we've done as a Republican conference in Congress, but as a work I've done for the past 7 years of my life, and even before that, serving the country, serving my community, serving my family. This is the record we run off of.
Got it. So I hear you say that you welcome all endorsements from conservative leaders. Does that specifically include that you welcome President Trump's endorsement?
It's an honor to have the president's endorsement, as it's an honor to have the Speaker of the House's endorsement, Governor Glenn Youngkin, Republican leadership. This is going to be a fight about who's the parties and which policies we prioritize. And I think there's stark contrast between what I'm prioritizing as a common sense conservative. It's really a fight between that common sense and really craziness. And when you're looking at the far left movement of the Democrat Party, and especially what's being elected in some of these primaries, even this evening, it's scary to me as a person who loves this country, who has served this country, to be running against people who are anti-American, who are anti-capitalism, who don't support things like keeping our communities safe, supporting law enforcement, supporting our military. So there's some stark contrast that we need to be highlighting all the way up till November.
Let me get you to respond to something that your opponent, Congresswoman Lauria, said, and I'll read you a little bit of this quote from the former Congresswoman. Jen Kiggans broke her promise to be an independent voice in Washington, voting 100% of the time with Donald Trump to raise prices on working families, on everything from health care premiums to gas prices. How do you respond to that, given the fact that prices are up, gas above $4 a gallon in many places?
Well, that's just not true. And Donald Trump hasn't voted in Congress last time I checked. But what we have done is prioritize ways that we can save families money and reducing that federal tax burden. What we did with the working families tax plan with no tax on tips and overtime and increasing the child tax credit, codifying those federal tax breaks. Those are the ways that we could work in Congress to make sure you're keeping more of your hard-earned money. So, and we're fighting here in Virginia, a state government. We have Abigail Spanberger, who is a new governor who proposed 51 tax increases right off the bat, who's increased our electric rates, who said that she wouldn't gerrymander the Commonwealth and then turned right around and made that a priority. So we're fighting a government here in Virginia that's really working hard to keep prices high. And I too, I have 4 children. Those children drive. I have a car that I have to put gas into. So I know that that's a priority of mine. We continue to talk about affordability, and I too am a grocery shopper and pay those bills as well. We've done work in Congress to lower things like housing prices, but to make sure, again, you're keeping more of your hard-earned money, but there's more work to do.
But very quickly, have you ever voted against the president's policies? Do you disagree with him anywhere?
We as a Republican conference and led by the president and the White House have certainly gotten the country on a much better track than it was on. We think about where we were under Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi, and we move forward in this country. And government is challenging and it is difficult. But it's good. It's a privilege to be able to have a seat at that conservative and common sense table. But when we think about, especially my opponent and where she came from under the Joe Biden administration, how the world was less safe, how our borders are wide open. We think of the policy priorities of people like Nancy Pelosi, who my opponent supported. Those are the stark contrast differences. So is it perfect? No. Is there work to do? Yes. But I have the privilege of sitting on the right side of the aisle. We prioritize the needs of American families every day.
Congresswoman Kiggans, thank you so much for joining us and for taking time out of what I know is a busy and important night for you as we all crank the gears towards November. Thank you very much for being with us. Appreciate that. We want to bring in now somebody else from Virginia, Shannon Taylor, who, as we noted earlier, NBC News projects has won the Democratic nomination in Virginia's 1st congressional district. Also a busy night for you. Thank you again for joining us. And you are now at this point set to face incumbent Congressman Rob Whitman. This is a district that has historically favored Republicans. It has also, in the last couple of years, it seems, swung to the left to a degree. So I ask you, what is your path to victory as you see it come November? Is it about supercharging turnout among the left? Is it about reaching out to independents and Republicans?
Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for letting me be here with you and your viewers tonight. You know, as the top prosecutor for my county for almost 15 years, you know, I've been sure to make sure that the priority of keeping my community safe is what we do every day. So we are out there holding people accountable for the harms that they are putting on the victims of crime. And right now, what we see is the harm coming out of a corrupt Washington, D.C., and we see Rob Whitman being the beneficiary of that corruption. And because of his special interests, because of his voting on bills and policies to support his corporate interest, those direct policies have been harming the good people here in the 1st Congressional District. I mean, he certainly has allowed his net worth to go up to 40 times since he's been in Congress for almost 20 years. And we know that he has been dealing with stocks over $2.5 million and gave himself one of the biggest tax credits, if not the biggest tax break in that budget bill. So we're out there talking to voters, whether they're Democrats or Republicans or independents, because they are all suffering that harm of that rise in costs. And that rise in costs is a direct result of the corruption in D.C. So we will continue the message that we were conveying to the people in the 1st Congressional District. We will continue with that message to prosecute that case against Rob Whitman and make sure that we defeat him in November.
Let me ask you a question. We are watching these battles play out in the Democratic Party between moderates and progressives in your state. In Michigan, of course, the big Senate race there, Abdul al-Sayed. Is he someone that you welcome into the Democratic Party? Do you think he, if he does in fact win tonight, has a shot at winning in the general?
You know, I do my job today without asking any victim if they're a Democrat or a Republican or an independent. And that, to me, is what is important, is to speak to every voter in the 1st Congressional District to find out what is the harm that this corrupt Washington has done to them. That, to me, is what is the most important thing for me to do between now and November, is touching every voter here in the 1st Congressional District to let them know that I'm going to go to D.C. and represent them. That's why I came up with an anti-corruption agenda, to make sure that we were going to be banning the corporate PAC money. We wanted to stop that stock trading while you're in Congress. I want to come up with to take off that Congress to lobbying firm pipeline, impose term limits, actually talk about imposing jail time for politicians who are stealing taxpayer dollars. That's what we're talking about out there in the 1st Congressional District, and that's what I'm focusing on to November.
All right, Shannon Taylor, we will watch it all unfold. Thank you so very much for joining us on a busy night. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And everyone can join me at shannontaylorva.com.
All right.
That's our first one of the night. I'm surprised it took us 45 minutes.
We'd like to put $1 in the jar.
Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting because you heard her obviously calibrate her message. Very careful answers from both of those candidates as they turn their sights towards the general.
And I think it's because of where she is. Like, I think as Texas is to Garrett Haake, Virginia is to Ryan Nobles. And so I would be remiss to not...
Panting over here.
I know.
I have so much to say.
Go.
About both races. Well, first, let me talk about Shannon Taylor.
Yeah.
I covered her first race for Henrico County Commonwealth's attorney. And I actually went back and looked at my notes on it.
Was this when you were in local?
This was when I was at the WWBT in Richmond. Shannon Taylor took on the Republican establishment in Henrico County, which at that time was dominant. You may remember the name Eric Cantor. He was the House Majority Leader at that time. He ran Henrico County. There hadn't been a Republican elected Commonwealth's attorney since 1987 when she won that race.
Democrat, I mean.
A Democrat. I'm sorry. It had been controlled by Republicans. At that point in this race, the longtime incumbent had decided to step down and not seek re-election. There was a hand-picked prosecutor that was picked to run for the Republicans. Democrats didn't even field a candidate because they thought they had no shot. That candidate from the Republican Party ended up with some personal issues that started to creep its way into the race. The Republicans attempted to pull him out of the race. At that point, Democrats said, we should probably go find someone to run. And it was Shannon Taylor that they picked at the time. She overcame a massive disadvantage, not only getting into the race late, but a huge funding advantage that the Republicans had at that time. The Republican nominee refused to get out of the race. They put in an incumbent, or a sitting Republican delegate who ran as an independent, but had the backing of Eric Cantor in that machine. she still won. She hasn't lost a race there since.
Okay, we were deep in the weeds on the Commonwealth, but the point I'm trying to make is super interesting.
The point I'm trying to make here is she's taken on an establishment Republican candidate before.
Yeah.
That's what she's doing here.
Yeah.
Rob Whitman has never had any sort of serious competition in Virginia's 1st congressional district. He doesn't know what it's like to have a candidate that could mount a serious race. Now, I would still give him, it's his race to lose because it's still a district that leans right. It certainly was a different situation if the redistricting had gone through, but this will be a race, and Shannon Taylor is probably the Democrats' best hope, and also a moderate candidate when there were several other progressives.
Well, that background is so interesting.
I love the weeds. Don't get me wrong. I was psyched.
I was too. I mean, Garrett, take us into the weeds. I thought it was fascinating to hear Jen Kagan's answer to Hallie's question about, do you welcome the endorsement of President Trump? It kind of took her a while to get there.
Well, I mean, she said, I welcome
the endorsement
any endorsement from any conservative leader. He's the conservative leader.
An exceptionally well-coached answer, and I don't mean that pejoratively.
She did say it was an honor to have his endorsement.
Yep, that's right. I mean, Higgins and Elaine Luria, who now know will face her again. I mean, these are elite candidates, right? I mean, this is always one of the biggest battleground races in the country. These are very well-prepared candidates with excellent resumes for their district. And I was scribbling notes really quickly when Jen Kiggins was talking, because I think she laid out some things that we're going to hear over and over again, which is negative polarization, right? For Republicans right now, their best tactic in a lot of these races is to scare the bejesus out of people about Democrats. And she was talking about candidates being scary, anti-American, anti-capitalist. I mean, this is not like they're going to vote against our priorities. These people aren't of this country. She's running against a fellow Navy veteran in this case, I believe. Elaine Luria is Navy, Air Force, Navy. Yeah. Right. So again, I think that is indicative of the kind of races we're going to see this fall, and a good thing to put a pin in. And I'll put one other pin in here. One of the things she said about when Democrats were in control, the world was less safe. She represents a heavily military district in Norfolk.
Most military proportion of any district in the country.
That's right. I think that's right. Yeah. We are a nation at war right now, and a lot of those people in her district are themselves serving overseas right now, and I think that's.
And she didn't even make an effort to bring the war into the conversation, which if it were popular, especially in a district like that, you think she would have found it.
Watch that space.
Watch that space, because it speaks to the challenge that Republicans are going to have heading into the general, particularly if the war with Iran is still ongoing.
I feel like we haven't said a certain word in a while. That word is Michigan. So I think we're going to say it when we get back right after a very super quick break. We're going to get back to Steve Kornacki. He's tracking all of it there, the marquee matchup of the night. We're going to also hear potentially from that critical Missouri race, too, incumbent Congressman Wesley Bell as well. Stick with us. We got much more coming up on NBC News Now in just a second. Welcome back. Steve Kornacki is back for us at the big board. Steve, we've been keeping tabs on what you're watching and what you're looking for, and you got a lot of interesting stuff coming out of there in Michigan. Specifically, well, I'll let you tell us.
Well, I'll tell you what we're waiting on, I think, but we got about a quarter of the vote statewide. It's a 6.5-point margin here for Al Sayed over Stevens. We do have, I want to pick up this story. I think we started to tell you a little bit ago, but Eaton County, this is a decent-sized county. It's bedroom communities, sort of suburbs of Lansing here. I think the interesting thing that's been happening is how much closer it's been getting here in Eaton as the night's going on. And it speaks to, don't mean to be a broken record, but that difference between, the election day vote that got counted fast and put Al Sayed way ahead, and the vote by mail that's been trickling in, the updates have been trickling in that Stevens' number has gone from a place through the course of the night here in Eaton where you're looking at it initially saying, oh, she's getting clobbered here, to like, is she putting herself in a range of where she'd need to be to have a real chance at this statewide? You're seeing that in Eaton. You're seeing that, to the east of Lansing and Livingston, where, again, that numbers continue to tick up. I think it's got to tick up more for her, considerably, but there's more vote to come. And it looks like it is that vote by mail, a lot of that vote by mail that's been so friendly to her. And so I think the story that's kind of taking shape here is there's a lot of questions like that on this map. There's a lot of blanks, on this map right now. Okay, like a place like Genesee County. This is a big one. This is where the city of Flint is. This is one of the higher black population counties in Michigan. One of the key ingredients that Stevens is looking for to have a shot tonight is to do extremely well, run up the score with black voters. How does that look? Does that happen? And how does that look in a place like Genesee County? Her formula for victory absolutely depends on it. We got nothing there that we can really show you right now. We don't have much in Saginaw either, where it's a bit of the same story. The counties are, there is a substantial black population there as well. All of these sort of questions that we're seeing here, the way Stevens has done as these votes have evolved, have raised the question, if she can do this, if she can do that, if she gets a big... All of that is coming around to, if she can answer yes to all those questions, then what she would need on top of everything else out of Wayne County would be big, big numbers. And I think specifically from Detroit, where the population is overwhelmingly black and where we have a very small amount of vote right now. What you're looking at, as a matter of fact, in Wayne, you see 4% in. That's just about, 12,000 votes counted. One thing we just got in Wayne was an update from the city of Dearborn. Dearborn is the first majority Arab American city in the United States. It's a place where Al Sayed won huge in 2018. He lost the primary statewide for governor in 2018 to Gretchen Whitmer, but he won big in Dearborn. And so we just got votes from Dearborn, place where we knew he's going to do really well, and those votes are election day votes. That's the type of vote he's been doing particularly well with. That's not all of this, but that's part of the mix you're looking at here. It's Al Sayed friendly. What we're waiting on is what happens in Detroit, specifically with the black vote in Detroit. Because Stevens, again, you're trying to stitch together through this patchwork of, partial returns, blank counties, very, very little that's close to complete right now as a county. You're seeing the hint of something from Stevens, but there's a lot of conditionals in that. And if they all kind of come to fruition for her outside of Wayne, it would come down to Wayne and to Detroit. And again, I say, like, the fact that we're sitting here at 10 o'clock Eastern and we got 4% in Wayne, this is par for the course for Wayne County.
Yeah.
But and to that point, what I hear you saying is we may be in for a fairly long night, Steve, right? I mean, if that's what it's going to come down to.
I'm saying I'm not sure it's coming down to that yet, because she still has a lot of work to do outside of Wayne County. There's been some encouraging numbers here throughout the night. If you're Al Sayed, I'll put this back to the statewide. There have been a lot of encouraging things in these numbers, for Al Sayed. So Stevens has got to establish a bunch of things in places that I was just showing you right there.
Yeah, exactly.
To have it come down to Wayne.
Steve, and can you just give us a sense how much of the early vote has been counted yet? Do we have a sense of that?
Actually, if you give me a second, Adam, do we cumulatively have how much early?
Hey, this is our first appearance by Adam Devine, producer extraordinaire. Hey, bud, there he is.
We have about 20% of the vote, early in-person vote that's currently in expected.
The early vote.
Yeah.
But how about the vote by mail?
Oh, the vote by mail, 9%.
Okay.
Right. So there's still, and that's Stevens' friendly vote,
Yes. Well, and when I talked to them today, they were feeling very confident about the early vote for all the reasons, Steve, that you are laying out there. We will come back to you early and often, Hallie. What's so fascinating is obviously both campaigns heading into this final stretch kind of thumping their chests about why they feel confident.
Yep.
But you're seeing, I mean, as Steve's saying, in some areas it's getting closer than he was anticipating.
I was just looking at my notes from some of the calls from folks just as we're all kind of getting ready for tonight. And the dynamic from those close to Abdul al-Sayed is like, don't say he's not electable, right? Don't say he can't win in a general. I mean, like, he's a fighter, and that's actually more what their argument is, that I think, that's actually what Democrats want more, a fighter. It doesn't matter where you are.
When Steve started redoing the Oakland County percentages earlier to project basically what we think might mean that there are more voters coming in, we don't know who those people are voting for, but that is key to the al-Sayed argument here, which is we're going to bring in new people. We're not just going to win over the same fence-sitting, voters that we're talking about every cycle. We're going to activate people who didn't otherwise care about politics. We'll see when the votes are counted whether or not that's true. But that is, again, to the electability argument, which person whose mind you're trying to read are you talking about? Are you talking about your neighbor who you know how they vote? Or are you talking about the guy down the street who's never voted at all? What makes them decide to turn out and vote for a candidate?
And Ryan, to Garrett's point, part of their argument is we're actually going to win over some of the Trump vote.
Yeah, that's right. When we say he's not electable, what data do we have that proves that point?
Well, I think those close to Stevens would say polls.
But I don't think you can poll a general election before you know the outcome of a primary and get some honest assessment of what's happening here. I think that this race is a 50-50 race. It was a 50-50 race before the primary. It would have been a 50-50 race if Hallie Stevens was the nominee. It's a 50-50 race if al-Sayed is the nominee. So it's going to be a tough one to win for both sides.
Can I do a Kristen Welker real quick and just pull back for a moment?
Yeah,
Can I pull back and do a big picture for a second? Because remember why this matters. Remember why this race matters so much for Democrats. Because they need to do well in Michigan to have any shot of winning.
They've got to win the states they already have.
Without Michigan, they need 4 states. If they lose Michigan, they have to win 5 states.
So talk about that path.
It's nearly impossible.
No, I mean, it's not impossible, but it is very, very difficult. And it would be almost impossible to see a scenario in which they lose a state like Michigan, but then surprise us in a place like Kansas or Iowa. That math doesn't math. So I think Michigan, that's the foundation of any path toward the Senate majority for Democrats.
All right, guys, we're going to do a little reset here. It is 10 o'clock on the East Coast.
Already?
At 10 o'clock already, as we continue NBC's special coverage of the biggest primary night remaining before the midterm. So let's get right to the night's marquee matchup in the Democratic primary. What we've been talking about, the Senate race in Michigan, where progressive Abdul al-Sayed is taking on the establishment-backed candidate, Congresswoman Hallie Stevens. Right now, that race is too early to call. But whoever wins that primary will take on former Republican Congressman Mike Rogers, who ran unopposed. This is a must-win race, as we've been saying, in November for Democrats if they want to take back the Senate.
So another key battle on the left we're watching tonight is the Democratic primary for Kansas governor, where State Senator Cindy Holscher is running in the more progressive lane against State Senator Ethan Kornacki, who has the backing of the state's current Democratic governor, popular governor, by the way, also running Mayor Kurt Skoog. Right now, that race is too close to call, but a lot of folks are watching this one. It has some interesting dynamics here. On the Republican side, Ty Masterson, the projected winner, no surprise there in that crowded field with the backing of President Trump.
And we've got establishment Democrats hanging on in 2 key races. The first, NBC News can project that the sitting Democratic Congressman Wesley Bell will win in Missouri's 1st District, fending off a challenge by former Congresswoman and progressive squad member Cori Bush.
In Michigan's 11th congressional district, the candidate backed by statewide Democrats, Jeremy Moss, is projected to defeat the more progressive candidate Aisha Faruqi, who is backed by Congressman Ro Khanna in Washington, a well-known progressive there.
Yeah, staying in Michigan now to the battleground 7th congressional district, where the progressive candidate backed by Bernie Sanders, William Lawrence, is trying to win the Democratic nomination right now. He's facing off against 2 more moderate candidates, Bridget Bink, Matt Masdom. And the question is the moderate vote there, Hallie, getting divided, essentially creating a pathway for Lawrence.
And this one, I think a lot of eyes are on it too, because, you know, if Will Lawrence ends up doing well there, can he also pull in the same kind of voter that Abdul El-Sayed is in Michigan? So lots to watch on that front as well. We've been talking a lot about Senator Bernie Sanders, of course, who's endorsed the progressive candidate in Michigan 13, other places as well. We want to get a check with our team in Michigan, Shaq Brewster, Julie Sirkin as well. We have them posted up at campaign headquarters. Shaq, let me start with you here. Numbers are starting to come in. We've been all together, you know, taking in the aura of Steve Kornacki and what he's saying about where these things are falling. Listen, Hallie Stevens has some ground to make up at this point if she wants to be doing better than she is. How are folks where you are feeling?
They're feeling excited, Hallie. I'll tell you, people are, again, ready to celebrate. Every time they see that screen up there, every time there's an update with the vote, there's a celebration, there's a cheer. People watching it very closely and kind of waiting to have that moment that they have come here to have. There's a lot of confidence in this room and around the campaign. The campaign telling me, I reached out to them, asking them how they're feeling right now. What are they looking at? They're saying they're feeling good about the turnout that they're seeing and the turnout numbers that they're watching, and they're pointing to different counties. They're pointing to Oakland County, kind of rubbing it in Hallie Stevens' face that it's so tight of a margin right there. And when I mentioned the crowd cheering every time there's an update, that's happening right now as the latest poll numbers or the latest results are popping up there. When you talk to people here, they are already looking to the general election. They are excited about the prospect of this being a fight against Mike Rogers. Something I hear in this room and also heard at polling locations is that there's a hesitation that if Stevens does win, they're making clear there is no guarantee that that means their vote will transfer over to her. A lot of people here are troubled by the amount of money that was spent in this race. That's something that has turned them off from other candidates. There would be some work to do if Stevens does end up winning, but the mood right here is that they don't feel like that's going to happen. They're very excited about that their candidate, Abdul El-Sayed.
Shaq Brewster at campaign headquarters there for El-Sayed. Thank you very much.
Let's head over to Julie, who's at the Stevens headquarters. What's the mood like there? Julie, you described a very festive scene earlier. Are they still feeling festive as these returns come in?
What's happening with the cheese, Julie?
They're not glued to the screens, maybe as much as they are where Shaq's at, but certainly people are still enjoying the bar, enjoying the food. Look, I just talked to somebody, though, a Michigan Democrat, who's a little bit concerned about what they're seeing so far, and they're already kind of starting to point fingers, excuse me, and the blame game as this room around me is a little bit crowded here. Okay, so the bar is this way, Hallie. The blame game, let me lay it out for you. They're starting to question whether or not she really did what she needed to do with the black vote, with the black community. That's really who she's been targeting in this race tonight. I'm so sorry. Let me just squeeze right past you. Okay, we're going to walk this way. It's a packed room. There's not a lot of room. I'm taking you here, Hallie, for a purpose. Okay, stick with me here. Because last time I told you how the cheese board appeared to be a little bit uneaten, untouched. People were drinking. Maybe they had nerves. Maybe they didn't want to eat. Well, now, not only are people watching Kornacki break it down, but they're starting to eat a little bit more. Look at that epic cheese board. People maybe need a little food to calm their nerves now, laying off the booze. But certainly, as you heard from Shaq there, this is a big one for Stevens. This is really going to define not only the future of the Democratic Party, but the directions and the lessons that Democratic leadership take with them. I mentioned earlier that there is some consternation already, some early finger pointing happening here. The polls closed, but the vote's not even in yet. The race hasn't even been called. And so that's the mood here, right? Behind the scenes, people are worried. But for now, all you can do is drink your drinks, eat your cheese, and watch Kornacki break down the results.
Julie Sirkin describing the Saturday night date of my dreams.
So
Can I tell you? A charcuterie platter,
Julie.
A little Kornacki at the big board.
It doesn't get any better.
Joined by you.
That's right. I mean, it is.
Only 10 o'clock, folks.
It's only 10 o'clock.
It's late somewhere.
Speaking of Kornacki.
Oakland County. Let's talk about it, because I think we just got some new numbers in from there, pal.
Yeah, we did just get a little bit more in Oakland. I can show you. Remember, it was at 67% expected vote in. It's now ticked up to, to excuse me, to 71% here. Stevens continues to lead here, a 2-point margin, a little bit more than 2 points over Al-Sayed. Again, this continues to be a mix of different vote types. So it's in terms of the trajectory here in Oakland of, who's on course. Is Stevens on course? Is Al-Sayed on course to do better in the remaining quarter or so of the vote? It's a little bit tough to discern. That's what we're sort of trying to figure out right now. But this Stevens margin, remember when we first got that big initial batch, which included a lot of vote by mail, it did also include, and I didn't emphasize this enough at the time, it did include a lot of Election Day vote as well. So it was a little bit more of a mixed bag, and Stevens has maintained that small advantage he had over Al-Sayed there as Oakland has continued to come in. Again, just statewide, what this looks like here, an advantage there of now it's just under 6 points. That the margin between Al-Sayed and Stevens, too, statewide, has been ticking down a little bit lower. It was 8, it was 7, it was 6.5, it was 6. It's 5.9 right now when you're looking at this. And part of that really is she has been, in a lot of these counties, posting some very big numbers as the full picture has started to come in. A lot of counties gave us Election Day vote right away, and it gave Al-Sayed a really running start in this thing. And then what's been coming in much more slowly and in trickles in a lot of cases has been more vote by mail, which, again, has been overwhelming for Stevens. And so I'll give you an example here. It's a relatively small county here. You're about 40 miles outside Lansing, Ionia County. But this is now,
I think we updated our expected vote there.
Boy, wow, I took a big swing and I whiffed. Our decision desk, we thought this was complete. We thought we had 100% vote here, and our decision desk has updated it. So I will pause the thought right there.
That's not your fault, Steve. That's not on you. That's not on you. That's okay. Is there anything interesting happening in some of these other smaller rural counties, Steve, that we should be tracking?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's interesting if you kind of look. I've been drawing the line here basically saying north of Saginaw, and there's not much here in the way of population centers. But the key in this area, is that the establishment candidate here you would expect would be getting 60% plus of the vote in these places. Al-Sayed, when he ran for governor in that 2018 Democratic primary against Gretchen Whitmer, really had some low numbers in northern Michigan, in the UP. We do have a completed county up here. It's very, very small. But Luce County in the Upper Peninsula, we think all the vote is in. And this is one where, Stevens is going to win it. But this is a good number up here for Al-Sayed. Okay, a place he got like 12% of the vote here when he ran for governor in 2018. He lands in the low mid 40s here. This is a place where I think Stevens, again, if she whiffs in Luce County, it's no big deal. It's very, very small. But if, as these other counties, as we start to get completed results in these other counties in northern Michigan, if this is the pattern, underwhelming Stevens victories, much stronger performances for Al-Sayed than he had in 2018, those do start to add up, and they could signal broader kind of demographic strength for Al-Sayed that extends outside the region. I say that because when you're talking about small-town northern Michigan and the UP, you are talking about a lot of blue-collar, older, white voters. And if that's a demographic in any way that he's overperformed with, who's to say it doesn't extend outside of this? So, again, I don't want to make too much, maybe I already have, out of one county in the UP, but we've seen a number of counties come in. I mean, you could just see it right here. This is the Al-Sayed shade of blue, right? I've been saying north of Saginaw, and these are a lot of partial results. These are not completed counties, but you are seeing hints in some of these counties that maybe what's happening in Luce County is broader.
All right, Steve Kornacki, we'll be checking back with you in a second. Thank you, pal. Appreciate you being there for us, walking us through all of it.
We want to bring in now Democratic Congresswoman Debbie Dingell of Michigan. Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining us. Boy, a lot to unpack. Let's start, just get your reaction to what we're watching right now, the vote coming in. It's a little tight.
Well, first of all, listening to Steve just makes my night. It's not an election night without listening to him. So I'm in a good mood now.
We agree with you there.
And he's right, by the way. Everybody wanted to call this race. We're looking at those early numbers. And one of the places that matters the most is Wayne County and Detroit, which is always one of the slowest votes to come in. And those votes are going to matter not only in the Senate race, but also I've had people saying that what's happening in the other Detroit district. And we're not going to know that for a while because Detroit votes are slow in coming in. But I think we've had a tremendous voter turnout today in Michigan. Some of the races have been determined. And, tomorrow we're going to pull everybody together and come together because we've got to win in November.
Congresswoman, we've got a projection that I think we're ready to make now. I'm waiting on our team to pull up the boards there, but I believe, here it is, the projection is that John James is going to be the candidate on the Republican side for Michigan governor going up against Jocelyn Benson on the Democratic side. So this is, to a degree, I think, what people, predicted would happen. Of course, Perry Johnson raised a ton of money, or spent a ton of money, I should say, in this race. But NBC News projecting it is going to be John James up against Jocelyn Benson. So I didn't want to interrupt you there, but that is an interesting and notable call in the state of Michigan for us tonight, as it sets one of the key statewide matchups. I mean, one of the big two here that we're looking at on this primary night. So let me ask you about that, because I do think one of the things we've been talking here at the table about is this idea of unity, Democratic unity. I was interested to hear Mallory McMorrow on another network say that she was asked who she voted for, which of her former opponents, and she kind of took a dodge. She said, I voted for great Democrats up and down the ballot. She has said that she will back whoever wins in the Michigan Senate primary. And I wonder how you see Democrats coming together after what's been a hard-fought, bitter primary night. We obviously don't know how the Senate side of things is shaken out in the primary. But how important is it for Michigan Democrats to try to coalesce if they're going to try to pull out some victories in November?
Critical. It's absolutely critical. And I want to say that I'm not old, but I'm seasoned. I've seen elections in this state. And sometimes people don't even understand, say, how close the Gore-Bush race was in the year 2000, and that Bush almost won the state back then. So, but this one's been ugly and not pleasant, and we got to bring people together. And I think all of us know what is at stake in November, that we can't afford to have somebody who's going to support the big, ugly bill. We need to reverse what that did in terms of health care and cutting health care and access for millions of Americans, the fact that they have cut food assistance. But I'll tell you what, I went back and read the op-ed that I wrote in 2016 when everybody told me I was crazy. And what I wrote in that op-ed in 2016 in the Washington Post is true today. People are hurting. You go in those union halls, and union members men and women want to know that people care about them, that they're going to fight for the issues that they talk about at dinner at night, about being able to buy a home, which too many can't do right now, to earn enough money to put food on the table, be able to go to the doctor when you need to go to the doctor, live in a safe and secure neighborhood, educate your kids, and have a safe and secure retirement. And that's what's on their minds today. And I'll tell you what, every Democratic candidate in this state has those as their priorities, and we have to remember that that's what November's about.
Just very quickly, because I know Kristen wants to jump in here too, but not every Democrat in your state feels that way. I mean, you know what Hillary Schulten has said and suggested that she is not going to, if it is Abdul El-Sayed who wins, she would not, stand with him, essentially. What would your message to her be?
I'm not going to, you need to talk to her directly. I'm going to work on organizing and pulling everybody together.
Well, Congresswoman, let me ask you, as you look toward November, and you and I have talked about this before, obviously there's a war with Iran. Democrats, a number of them have run squarely against President Trump. What should the strategy be for whoever wins, whether it is El-Sayed or whether it is Stevens? Should the campaign be centered around Donald Trump?
I think you can't, I've said this to you before too, you're not going to win this election being anti-Donald Trump. You're going to win it by talking about the issues that matter to the voters, to the working men and women that we represent, and what we're going to do to make a more affordable America, what we're going to do to lower the cost of groceries, what we're going to do to take the war is directly responsible for the higher gasoline prices that working men and women are paying, and a lot of them can barely afford to drive to work and then put food on the table. So we got to show them what we're for, not just be against.
Congresswoman, we got another call. We're call city over here. Another projection to make. I know. This one is in the state of Kansas, where NBC News is projecting it is Cindy Holscher who is going to get the Democratic nomination in that state's governor's race. A super interesting one here. Obviously, the current Democratic governor, very popular, term limited here. Governor Kelly had backed Ethan Korsen, but it is Cindy Holscher who is pulling it out tonight. Focused more on a progressive, anti-establishment message in what was a pretty competitive governor's race in, obviously, a state that President Trump won handily by something like 16 points in 2024. Congresswoman, just quickly, I know it's not Michigan, but I'd love your reaction on that and how you see that one playing out. I mean, Democrats, I assume, I know the party wants Democrats to win regardless of the state they're in and whether it's red or blue.
I'm going to tell you that every Democrat is going to work hard to keep that governorship as a blue governor. I've met her. I don't know her that well, but okay. I suspect that you're going to see Kansas Democrats rally around her to get her reelected. And I think that'll start with the current governor, quite frankly.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, Congresswoman Debbie Dingell. Always great to see you. Appreciate your joining us. Let's get back to Steve Kornacki at the big board on what just happened in Kansas. Cindy Holscher will be the Democratic nominee for governor. Steve, how did it happen?
Yeah, I mean, take a look. A very close race here. By the way, Kansas very quick at counting their vote. We got more than three-quarter in. Holscher now opening up a very healthy advantage there over Korsen. I think one place to take a look right here in Johnson County, because Johnson County is more than a third of the vote statewide for Democrats in this primary. Okay, you're right outside Kansas City, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas for that matter. Rapid, explosive growth here. There's like 650,000 people. And all three of these candidates, Holscher, a state senator, Korsen, a state senator, Kurt Skoog, the mayor of Overland Park, all three of them from Johnson County. So in some ways, to me, the question tonight was going to be, is this a Johnson County primary? One of the winners, they got to decide from three of their favorite sons, favorite daughters. Johnson County ends up going for Holscher here, wins this by about a 4,000 vote margin. You can see she also posts a win here of a similar margin. This is Kansas City, Kansas right here. She did extremely well here. Douglas County, where the University of Kansas is. Shawnee County, where the state capital Topeka is. Still vote to come right there. But these are the big population centers here. Really big numbers for her down in Wichita, where Sedgwick County is. And so she did, as the night goes on, pull away from Korsen. And so you have that dynamic. And the Republican side, Ty Masterson, endorsed by Trump. This is the story we've seen in so many Republican primaries. Trump endorses. Trump gets his candidate in Kansas. On the Democratic side, I think you said, Laura Kelly, Democratic governor, sided with Korsen in this, does not get her candidate.
Which is so interesting because she has gangbusters popularity in the state of Kansas. I mean, I think she's one of the top 10, most popular, like highest approval rating governors in the country, and had thrown that weight behind Ethan Korsen, who was very happy to talk about that when he was on the campaign trail. The other piece of this, too, Kansas hasn't elected a Democratic senator, I think, since the 30s. But it is one of 5 states that is represented by a Democratic governor in a state that Donald Trump ended up winning, Steve. So there does seem to be some interesting dynamics at play. I feel like if the theme of the night is you can't paint with a broad brush, right? Like this maybe is part and parcel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think one thing we've seen is gubernatorial races can kind of defy the tribalization, polarization of national politics much more than federal races can. Races for the U.S. House, races for the Senate. So you'll see a state like Kansas that's a reliably red state in a presidential election have circumstances where it will elect a Democratic governor. You'll see a state like Massachusetts, not too long ago, one of the most Democratic in the country. Charlie Baker was a 2-term Republican governor from 2014 to 2022. Vermont, does it get more Democratic than Vermont? Currently has a Republican governor who's running for re-election. So I think you get a little bit more of that sort of ticket splitting is not a thing we see that much at the national federal level. You do still see it a little bit under some circumstances at the gubernatorial level.
So, Steve, obviously, the big race we're watching, we have to go back to it in Michigan. Any update you can give us on the Al Sayed Stevens race? We were just talking about it with Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, who talked about, Steve, the fact that tomorrow, whoever wins, if we have results by tomorrow, hopefully we'll have results by tomorrow, that they're going to have to unify. But what are we seeing so far tonight? Yeah, I mean, I'm going to dive right back in here because in the last couple minutes, the vote here has ticked up. It's coming in slowly. It is coming in. We were at about a quarter of the vote. Now we're getting close to 30%. One thing, very big picture that we're seeing, it continues to happen here, is that Stevens in that sort of bottom line number against El Sayed, it continues to tick down.
58-45-6. It's now 5.2. We said 8. We said 7, 6.5, 6. And inside of 5, now we're getting down close to so this continues to shrink here. There is still a lot to come here. It's sort of uneven where the vote is coming from. I'm going to look here. I'll see some of these for the first time myself. I just want to see. We started to get vote in Lansing, state capital, big Democratic bastion. This is a place where Al Sayed wants to do very well tonight. I think he sort of depends on it. Livingston County next door. I will say, and to Grand Rapids, did we get anything more? No. I'm just checking these kind of for the first time here myself. Genesee County, Saginaw County, so not a ton more in those places. The story really has been, though, that there was a bit of a mirage early, I think, in that the Election Day vote in some places got reported out very quickly and huge for Al Sayed, and in a much longer process in not all. We haven't seen this in all counties, but we've seen this in a fair number of counties now where Stevens has chipped away at that early advantage that Al Sayed has had and has given herself numbers. Eaton County, she's getting close here to a number that I think coming into the night she would have wanted to have. It didn't start out that way. That's the same story next door here in Livingston County. We're looking for other counties on the map we can measure where we've got this much vote in. There aren't many counties right now where you're looking at 75, 80, 90, 95% of the vote in. We showed you last time there is some evidence, some limited, in northern Michigan in the rural parts that Al Sayed might be outperforming there, too. So that becomes a factor, maybe a bit around the edges, but it certainly could become a big factor. But it's been notable to me. I think there were some initial big numbers in some of these places that suggested at the start of the night, this could be a runaway for Al Sayed. Wow. I think it's come back around a bit the other way. The question is, how far back around is it going to come? And I think what we just need, we say Wayne, that's true. But what we really need right now is some substantial counties to get to basically 100%. Because so much of what we're doing right now is, well, she's doing good with this vote, he's doing good with that type of vote, if it does this, if it does that. When I can see a couple of these actually get to 100%, I think it'll clear up fast before we get to Wayne.
All right. Well, we are on pins and needles. Steve Kornacki,
thank you
so
Detroit.
much. We appreciate it. We got more vote out of Detroit.
I'm sorry. Yes, we
that pre-process absentee just came in out of Detroit. Whoa. It's another 45,000 votes.
Okay. This is the vote by mail in Detroit.
Yep.
This is all of Wayne County. This isn't just Detroit that you're looking at. But if you were seeing this before, Al Sayed had a narrow lead with a very scant number of votes counted in Wayne. We've now added the vote by mail for the city of Detroit. And Adam, what were the margins on that?
Yeah, Stevens gets 74, Al Sayed gets 22.
Wow. So, now, that's a very, very big number for her, obviously. She's winning the vote by mail.
This is what she wanted to see.
By 52. What we now need to see is the second piece of it. This is like a boxing match, right?
Yeah.
She just took her best punch. Now Al Sayed's going to take his best swing with the Election Day vote. Right? Yeah. How does it look compared to that? But I think one thing that's interesting that we've been looking at as these votes have been coming in, one model we've kind of had in our minds here is that gubernatorial primary in 2018. When Gretchen Whitmer won, Al Sayed was sort of a distant second, but Whitmer only got 52% statewide in that primary, as the lone establishment candidate against two progressive challengers, Al Sayed and one other. And so we've been using the Whitmer number in a lot of these counties as sort of maybe a rough benchmark of where Stevens wants to be tonight. And the interesting thing is Whitmer really struggled in Wayne County. She lost Detroit. She actually came in second place in Detroit. She got 36% of the vote in Detroit. She got 44% overall in Wayne County. And again, I keep saying how big Wayne is, 20% of the vote, statewide. So this was core to the chances Stevens has tonight is getting a substantially better number out of Detroit and by extension out of Wayne County than Gretchen Whitmer did in 2018. This is consistent with that. The question now is, as you start to get that Election Day vote, how much is Al Sayed able to offset that?
So then, can I ask you this, Steve? And I don't want to. I'm reliably told by our source in the room at the Stevens camp that they are literally hanging on your every word as we speak. So just, know the audience here. What is the number that Al Sayed's camp is going to want to see for that and that Stevens' camp is going to see? In other words, what is the ballpark that we should be looking for when that comes in?
Well, I mean, I think you use the Whitmer. I said the city of the. I'm sorry, but did we just get a little bit more? It just changed. What did we just get?
Yeah, we got another 3,000 votes.
Do we know from?
I don't know from where.
Okay, so again, Wayne is not just Detroit, so that might be what just happened there. We said Detroit in that 2018 primary, it was 38% went for Sri Tanadar. Okay, one of the two progressive, he's a congressman now. 36% went for Gretchen Whitmer, okay, and 26% went for Al Sayed. So, and now the number that Whitmer got out of Wayne, the Wayne County number for Whitmer was 44%. Was 44%. So I think if you're Stevens, right, you want to try to move that number close to 50% out of Wayne. So you want this, you want this 36 number to be over 50. You want to be winning Detroit. You want to be winning Detroit by a very, substantial margin tonight.
So, Steve, just to reset, what's the statewide look like? Just remind us where we are statewide with this new vote coming in.
That knocked, take a look at this. Now we're over a third of the vote statewide. That was a big batch right there. And again, this has been the shrinking margin. That is now 3.1 that separates Stevens from Al Sayed. This has, I think, starting at about 16, 17% of the vote. We were looking at Al Sayed by 8. Every update since, almost without fail, this has ticked a little closer. It just ticked down to 3. Adam, what just came in? Anything meaningful?
During our last update, we got a bunch of Kent. Nothing meaningful in the last 10 seconds there.
Okay, but we did get a lot of Kent.
Yes.
Now, this must be Election Day.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now, do we think we have how much of the Election Day vote do we think we have in Kent? This becomes a key question. This is where Grand Rapids is. This is a big piece of the puzzle.
About 60% of Election Day, according to our current tracker.
We think about 60% of the Election Day, and how much of the vote by mail do we think we have?
44%.
Okay, so there is more. Now we got to run a few numbers on this, but
Grand Rapids is interesting because I think that Stevens was there today. I want to say, do I have that right? Yesterday and today. I mean, this is another place that she had been
swinging.
Exactly. Spending some time there for sure. So, Steve, we're gonna live in this for a second, bud, because watching you think is entertaining for all.
What was that Election Day vote that just came in? How did it break?
It broke overwhelmingly for El Sayed, trying to take a look here. It was 80% for El Sayed and 19% for Stevens.
Okay, I mean, this is a great example, folks, because we're saying that Election Day vote has been so pro-El Sayed. This is how pro-El Sayed. 80% to 19% in that batch that just came in, right?
Yeah. So that's a punch counterpunch you're talking about.
That bucket of if this is the Election Day vote, right, where El Sayed is getting numbers like this. Okay, Adam, you said that number is 60% full?
Yes.
Yeah, that bucket is 60% full right now. So there's still 40% of the bucket where Al Sayed's putting up numbers like this. Right now, the other bucket is the vote by mail. How is that breaking right now? Do you have that number handy?
In Kent?
Yeah.
In Kent, that 53% for El Sayed, 41% for Stevens.
The vote by mail?
Yes.
He's leading the vote by mail there?
In Kent, yes.
How many votes is that?
20,000.
Okay. Well, that's wow.
It's interesting.
That's a twist.
If you're Stevens, you said 53-41.
Yeah.
For Al Sayed.
Yes.
Okay. So Stevens is losing her best batch by 12, and she's losing her worst batch by 61. And I think Adam said this one's about 44. We got about 44% from this bucket. The only thing I would ask about that, though, is this heavily skewed to Grand Rapids?
Potentially, yeah. I can look into it.
Okay, this is Grand Rapids, but it's not just Grand. So there could be more to this. But as a benchmark, since we've been going through these, right? Like in Kent County, we knew coming in Kent was going to be a good one for Al Sayed. He got 41% of the vote in that 2018 primary. Right. He got 41% of the vote. Whitmer got 44% of the vote right here. Okay, right? Like Joe Biden, when he won the state's primary in 2020, he got 46% of the vote right here. Hillary Clinton got 37% in 2016 when she narrowly lost Michigan to Bernie Sanders. And, again, I want to look more into that vote by mail number, but that vote by mail number has to, I think, turn around for Stevens here. She can't be getting 30 in a place like Kent. She's not going to win it, but I think for a candidate like her, given what we're seeing elsewhere, she needs to be in the 40s, in a place like that. I think she needs to be cracking that at least. That's what the other establishment wing candidates have been able to get here. And again, Whitmer only got 52% statewide, right?
Yeah.
Sanders got 53% statewide in 2020, and he got like 49% statewide in 2016. Clinton and Sanders both got like 49% in 2016. So mid-40s, low mid-40s for those candidates, high 30s even for Clinton, got them right to the kind of cusp of a majority. So Stevens at 30%. That's, and again, Grand Rapids, what is it? This is fast growing and it's young. So much of the El Sayed support correlates with age. This is one of the younger median ages you're going to find. So it's true next door as well. In Ottawa County, one of the younger median ages you're going to find in the state is right here. So it's part of the reason why we expected that to be a big number for him. And in fact, I just want to check in because it occurs to me, speaking of young voters, do we have more? We don't have. Washtenaw County is another one here where, again, we thought would be one of the best for Al Sayed tonight. And again, where I think Stevens knows she's going to lose, but wants to be getting closer to something, 40 here or something.
Yeah.
It's one of those. So that's what I'm saying when I said to bring it around to Detroit for Stevens, she's got to do a bunch of other things. And those are the kinds of warning signs that exist on this map. Kent County is a clear warning sign for her. Washtenaw, maybe. There is a thing in Washtenaw where typically, at least in the last few elections, the last thing they've reported out, or one of the last things they've reported out, is specifically vote by mail from the city of Ann Arbor, where the University of Michigan is. Yeah. Is that if so? There could be a batch late in Washtenaw that's useful to Stevens. Something to keep in mind when you see her number right there. But Washtenaw, that's low for her if it were to hold in that area. Kent's low for her if it were to hold in that area, and maybe some indications, in those rural areas where you need them collectively, where she may not be. That's preliminary. But she may be lower than she wanted to be there as well. So there's when I say there's encouraging signs in this statewide for Al Sayed, it's that. And as a matter of fact, that update in Kent County, I think, was so significant in that we say the shrinking margin, right? Now it's going a tick the other way. Remember, it got down to 3.0. Now you're looking at 3.4. I think what happened in Kent County has a lot to do with that. So, a little bit more now. Now we're getting closer to 40% of the vote in, and Al Sayed leading 3.4 statewide.
All right. Steve Kornacki, fascinating. It is coming in fast and furious. And this is a real race.
My brain is still. It's.
I know.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating.
And Adam, the voice of God, was just incredible. Adam was just incredible. Steve, we're going to get back to you very soon. We're going to just unpack everything. Yeah. We learned quickly here at the table as we wait for Michigan to come in, and it's getting closer, as Steve said, and also there's more vote coming in. But let's just go to Kansas quickly.
Yeah, just to put a pin on the Kansas stuff, I worked in Kansas City, lived on the Missouri side, but covered politics in both states. The Johnson County of it is fascinating. That's where so much of the vote comes. It's a huge suburban county. Laura Kelly is very popular, to your point, Hallie, but she also had the great good fortune to run against Chris Kobach in her first race that she won. Kansas voters tend to reject sort of people on the extremes. Jerry Moran, the longtime senator there, is sort of very much a moderate. Roger Marshall, perhaps a little bit less so. But that's a state that I think is likely to revert to the mean of sort of more baseline Republican, behavior in the future. We'll see how this actually shapes up. But Ty Masterson is not a crazy sort of flamethrower. So we'll see how Kansas behaves in that race. On the Michigan side of it, I was listening to Steve talk about Kent County, having covered a bunch of races there. It's also the swingiest county in the state. And if you're Syed, I think this is another talking point in the electability conversation that we've been having, and we'll see where the numbers shake out again. But to do well in a place like that, where when we talk about it in general elections, we're talking about this as Gerald Ford's home county and the kind of more moderate Republicans who make up a big part of the folks who live there. If you're Syed and you can make your case there, I think that speaks to that electability argument. But once again, we'll know when the votes are counted.
I mean, are you, at least give me some credit. We didn't get into the Chiefs thing and how Polsher doesn't back the tax break that the governor wants to give the Chiefs to move from Missouri into Kansas. That's all I'm saying.
The border stealing of businesses and, in this case, franchises across the border between Missouri and Kansas is like the longest running thing you could possibly to cover in Kansas City.
Almost here. What's interesting too about the Michigan race, and just to pick up on a thought from Garrett and Kristen here, there's also, we've been talking about the sort of policy flavor of things, progressivism versus Democrats who are more moderate. It's also the establishment piece of it, right? The incumbents and the challenge that some of them are facing. And do people want, there's an appetite. I think if you talk to El-Sayed's campaign, they'll tell you there's a real appetite for somebody who is seen as an outsider, a fighter, somebody who's really going to take it to the establishment. You're even seeing some people who are arguably in the establishment rail against the establishment, too. Yeah, first off, there's a reason that we don't call these races in the first 10 minutes after the polls come out, and it's this exact reason. Don't tune out quite yet, because it seems as though this Michigan race is going to go right down to the wire. But what would we do if we called them in the first 10 minutes? It would be so boring. It would be so... we just have to make up drama. You'd find a way to pick on me, but other than that, we'd be okay. No, but I think that, to your point, Hallie, the average voter, millions of people are casting votes tonight. Most of them do not have a deep understanding of every single policy issue. You ask them, why are you voting? But they can grasp kind of the big picture issues that are dominating American politics. And I don't think there's a bigger issue right now than this idea of us versus them. And for each individual voter, that definition of what us versus them means is something completely different. For some, it's an economic argument. For some, it's a cultural argument. For some, it's a societal argument. And one thing that is very clear is that if you've been in office for a long time and if you're older, you sit on the side of them versus the side of us. And so it doesn't always boil down into these very, specific policy fights that I think, a lot of times, I heard so much on Capitol Hill, it's like, well, the Republicans just need to pass this housing bill. And if they pass this housing bill, that'll solve all of our problems. Well, the average American has no idea what's in this housing bill. Like you heard Jen Kiggins in your interview. That's not a knock on America.
It's not a knock. Busy. No, exactly. They have other things to do. They expect their representatives to take care of this stuff. So I think sometimes the consultants, the people in Washington get too caught up in the kind of the intricacies of the legislative process, and they lose sight of that connection that you have to make on an emotional level with voters. And if it's one thing that's playing out here tonight, it's not necessarily a trend of all the progressives winning or all the mainstream people winning. It's this idea of the folks that are finding a way to connect with their voters on a human level and kind of really hone in on this idea, I'm going to try and make your life better. And that seems to be what's dominating the conversation tonight.
All right, we're going to pause this conversation and we want to bring in Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont. Senator, thank you so much for joining us tonight on this busy election night.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Let's dive right in. I just want to get your reaction to what we're seeing in the Michigan Senate race. Closer than arguably expected between Abdul El-Sayed and Hallie Stevens. What's your reaction, and do you think that Dr. El-Sayed can still pull out a victory?
Well, I surely hope so. What makes this election, I think, historical, and people have got to understand it. I cannot recall, and if you can, please tell me, an election in which a candidate, in this case Dr. El-Sayed, was taking on the entire Michigan Democratic establishment, taking on the entire national Democratic establishment, and more significantly, $60 million of super PAC money. Unbelievable, unprecedented, against him, half of which comes from AIPAC. And if you look at the election results right now, he's a few points up. That's extraordinary, that he can withstand all of that, those attacks against him. So I'm very proud of the campaign that he ran. It was a grassroots campaign. He had thousands and thousands of volunteers. We will see what happens. I surely hope that he wins. We desperately need him in the Senate as a voice for Medicare for all, as a voice to stop funding the extremist government in Israel, as a voice to demand that billionaires start paying their fair share of taxes. And I'll tell you, maybe most importantly, as a voice that says we have got to get billionaire super PAC money out of the political process.
I wonder about any of the conversations, Senator, that you've had among Democrats, independents in the Senate, obviously, and specifically any assurances from them. If it is, let's say, and when we're talking hypotheticals here, I'll ask you too, if it is Senator Al-Sayed, do you have assurances that they would support him in the Senate? And conversely, would you support a Senator Stevens if that's what it came to?
Look, I think that Donald Trump is the most dangerous president in the history of the United States. And I don't have to go through all of the reasons why. He's an authoritarian, he's a liar, he's a kleptocrat. He's gotten us into this terrible, terrible war in Iran. I will do everything that I can to check the powers that Trump has right now. And to do that, we're going to need a Democratic-controlled House, a Democratic-controlled Senate. And as I have said, I will do my best, when I'm asked, to elect Democrats all across the country.
Senator, the big question, as you know, what a general election matchup would look like if Dr. Al-Sayed were to, in fact, win the primary. Mike Rogers has said he effectively would welcome Al-Sayed because he thinks he would be the easier candidate to beat. What's your reaction to that and the strategy you would argue Al-Sayed should deploy in a general election?
Look, I think two things. I think that Mr. Rogers underestimates the disgust that the American people are feeling right now about a rigged economy in which working families are struggling to put food on the table, pay for health care, while the billionaire class is getting much richer. And his friend, the president, gave $1 trillion in tax breaks for the 1% through 15 million people off of health care. You know what? I don't think the people of Michigan or any place else thinks that's a good idea. So that's number one. I think ideologically, the agenda that Abdul is talking about, an agenda that benefits working families, takes on the oligarchs, will appeal not only to Democrats and independents, I think a certain number of Republicans. Second point that I would make, Kristen, is, and I think you're seeing it tonight, by the way, my understanding is the turnout is very, very large. I think a candidate like Abdul can bring a lot of young people, working people who have given up on the political process, say, you know, there's no difference. I can't afford anything. All these politicians are full of crap. I'm not going to vote. I think he can get some of those people into the political process. And if he does, most of them will vote for him.
Senator, we've been talking a bit about the folks that you have endorsed that are campaigning tonight, that are up for election tonight. One of them, of course, is former Congresswoman Cori Bush, who NBC News projects has been defeated by Congressman Wesley Bell. And, Senator, respectfully, you don't have a magic wand, right? I mean, and you know that, I think. But what happened here? What do you think it was that didn't get her over the finish line?
I think she was greatly outspent by an incumbent. I mean, that's among other things. There are elections. There are a lot of reasons why. I like Cori very, very much. I think she's a wonderful person. She lost. But I think one of the things that you should know is that as we fight our races from New York City with Mamdani to New Jersey to Colorado, it is always the case that our candidates are greatly outspent. And you're seeing that, of course, in Michigan tonight. So we always start with the disadvantage that they're heavily outspending us. But hopefully things will go better in Michigan than in Missouri.
Senator, it's Garrett Haake on the desk here. When you ran your presidential races in Michigan and you were running on Medicare for all, the Democratic Party was sort of in a different place on that issue. We were talking about this earlier at the table. How do you see the Medicare for all issue playing differently in Michigan in 2026 than it did for you in 2016?
Good question. And I think the answer is the world is changing. You got to look, I have given a million speeches, and I almost always say, anybody in the room think that the American healthcare system is working? Raise your hand. You know what? Nobody raises their hands. It is a broken, dysfunctional system. We are spending an outrageous sum of money for healthcare, twice as much as the people of other countries, and yet 85 million Americans are uninsured or underinsured. You tell me, why in this great country are we the only major nation not to guarantee healthcare to every man, woman, and child, and we're spending twice as much as the people of other countries? All right? Everybody knows that's crazy, all right? So we got to take on the greed of the insurance companies, the drug companies, pass Medicare for all, substantially lower prescription drugs. There is widespread support for that.
Let me ask. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, Senator, I've been struck as we've heard from voters today, voters who were out there, they cast their ballots earlier, including some who have said some variation of this. I'm paraphrasing here. I'm a progressive. I'm voting for the progressive candidate in this race. And if the progressive candidate does not win, I would rather sit out in November. I would rather not vote than back the moderate Democrat. What would your message be to those voters?
I would strongly disagree with that assertion. Again, in Donald Trump, in my view, we have the most dangerous and unstable president in the history of this country. And I would hope not only that moderate Democrats, progressives, but a significant number of Republicans understand that this is not Ronald Reagan. This is not George Bush. This is an egomaniac. He is, in my view, mentally unstable. He is a kleptocrat. He has contempt for the Constitution and the rule of law. And we cannot allow him to retain with his party control over the House and the Senate. So I will do everything that I can to make sure that Democrats win the House and the Senate. And simultaneously, I'm doing everything I can to see the progressives win primary elections around the country.
And so just very quickly on that point, if in fact it is Hallie Stevens who pulls it out in this race, you would back her, you would support her, you'd campaign for her?
Yes, if she wanted me to campaign for her, but I certainly would support her.
Senator, just very quickly, we were talking to Congresswoman Debbie Dingell. She talked about the importance of unifying in the wake of what has been a really tough fight between Dr. Al-Sayed and Hallie Stevens. Do you think that's possible? How can Democrats, understanding you're an independent, but how would you be a part of that process? How could Democrats come together in the wake of this? How do you see that unfolding?
Well, I would hope that every Democrat and every independent and many Republicans understand that this is an extraordinarily dangerous moment in American history. And it's not just Trump and his authoritarianism and his lies. We are looking at a climate crisis. I don't have to tell anybody what the heat has been in Europe and here. We are looking at unprecedented income and wealth inequality. We're looking at a corrupt campaign finance system. We're looking at a housing crisis. We're looking at kids getting hooked on screens whose reading capabilities are in decline. We got a lot of problems. And we have got to come together to make sure that we end Trumpism and we start developing policies that work for working people and not just the billionaire class.
All right, Senator Bernie Sanders, thank you so much for joining us on this election night. We continue to watch the returns come in. Thank you for helping us watch them for a little bit of this evening. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. Take care.
Thanks, Senator. Let's bring into the conversation now our political pros, Ashley Etienne, former communications director for Vice President Harris, and a Meet the Press contributor, and former Louisiana Congressman Garrett Graves. Good to have you both with us. Thank you for being here. Ashley, let me go to you first, since we just heard from Senator Sanders on this. And this idea that we've been talking about here, a couple of themes emerging throughout the night, right? Number one, it's notable, and I think Garrett made the point, was it in our group chat? I don't know if it was on the air, but the senator, it's all there. The senator saying that if it were Hallie Stevens, he would support her. He obviously hopes that it is not. He hopes that it is Abdul Al-Sayed who pulls it out. But the idea of unifying in order to, win in November, and the idea that you can't necessarily paint with a super broad brush. We're not seeing some of those really clear patterns emerge just yet.
Well, I mean, I'd love to tackle this issue of unity and electability. The way that campaigns run typically is that what happens is there becomes a coordinated campaign. It's like economies of scale where all of the campaigns are working together to turn out voters. So when you think about it from that perspective, Democrats have an advantage over the Republican slate. Here's what that advantage is. One, you've got Governor Gretchen Whitmer, who is still very much a popular governor. She's polling over 50%. She's got an unprecedented turnout machine. She's been able to, in 2022, turn out and flip some of those Republican counties. So she's got the ability to appeal beyond the Democratic base. Secondly, you've got Benson, who's running for governor. She's won twice statewide. Now, you compare that to the Republicans with James and Rogers, both of whom have lost statewide. James has lost twice statewide, and Rogers performed worse than Donald Trump did in the best set of circumstances when he lost. So when you sort of compare these two, I think that this issue of electability and whether or not we'd win, Democrats have a clear advantage over the Republican slate.
Congressman Graves, let me have you weigh in here. How do you see this, your reaction to John James winning, now, of course, the nominee for governor in Michigan? Do you think President Trump, the fact that the war with Iran is ongoing, the fact that gas prices continue to be above $4 a gallon, is that going to be a drag on Republican candidates like John James?
Look, I served with Congressman John James, and he is a fantastic candidate, a fantastic leader. And I think the role of President Trump in this election, look, there's no doubt people are going to try and make this about the president. But the reality is, I think that folks in Michigan are going to be looking at what these candidates are talking about in terms of being in Michigan. You want to talk about drags? I'd say that the drag that's going to be on the Democrat Party is the lack of an agenda. What do they stand for? You're seeing the Democrats in the state of Michigan in the Senate race beat each other up. This more establishment wing of the party compared to the more radical wing, the socialist wing, and watching them beat each other up. I don't think the Democrats have a clear agenda or a clear message that they're trying to sell for this election.
What's also interesting, Congressman, and by the way, it's good to have you with us. I know this is your first, I think it's your first primary night with us, right?
Yeah.
We bust out the Sauv Blanc a little later, just FYI. That's at the end of the evening. It's interesting to hear you talk about President Trump, because we did see Congresswoman Kiggins do a little bit of a stiff arm earlier when we asked about the endorsement that he just delivered to her yesterday. And she gave sort of a... what's a good word for it? A carefully worded response, sort of saying, I welcome all endorsements. And she eventually said it was an honor to have him. But I do wonder what you make of that, considering, her district, some of these other Republicans who are going to be in super competitive battleground districts, and some of what we've seen from voters, too, that they don't love when Washington tells them how to vote.
Yeah.
Look, I think that's the key message. They don't like it when Washington tells them how to vote. But the other thing that's important, look, anytime you have these purple districts, these districts that are borderline Republican or Democrat, they don't like the president coming in. Whether it's President Biden or President Trump, that's not something that they often endorse. And look, let's keep in mind, in the state of Virginia, Governor Youngkin, former Governor Youngkin, a Republican, won in that state. He didn't go out there and necessarily embrace the president. I think that folks have to look at their district, read it, and ultimately represent the people there. And I think that Jen Kiggins, another member that I served with, has done a great job as a former military service member in a very military-heavy district, and I think she's going to be incredibly competitive in this race.
It was interesting. We had the opportunity to interview Congresswoman Kiggins, and Ashley, boy, as Garrett pointed out, her strategy seems to be to make people afraid of Democrats writ large, effectively saying that Virginians would be less safe under an Elaine Luria, and a number of other reasons she says that people should feel afraid of her. What's your reaction to that strategy, Ashley Etienne? What should the response be? Could it be an effective one?
I mean, it could very well be an effective one. But, I think all of these races are going to come down, to conditions. Conditions will make the difference. I was running communications for Speaker Pelosi in 2018, where we won 40 seats. The reason why we won those 40 seats was based on conditions. So we even won some and flipped some Republican seats that cycle. And it's primarily because of what the voters are facing. And so if you look at from Michigan to Virginia, any of these races, purple or blue, deep blue, all that we're seeing is that the American people are suffering. They're having a hard time with the economy. And so if Democrats, to the congressman's point, if Democrats could coalesce around a really strong affirmative agenda around affordability, it could work. I've never seen numbers like this before. 96% of the country thinks that we're in affordability crises. That all goes back to one person, and that's Donald Trump. And so, as much as we like to think that the president is not on the ballot, he actually is in this case. And if we look back to Michigan, James in particular has voted with the president almost 90 to 95% of the time. He voted for the tariffs that are actually hurting, that have not amounted to a boom in terms of manufacturing in that state. It's increased costs. So these Republicans are going to have to carry. They cannot create, as much as they would like to, distance from this president, especially on the issue of affordability.
All right, Ashley and former Congressman Garrett Graves, thank you. We'll check back in with you in just a little bit.
Let's get a quick check with Ryan. He hasn't been at the big board, I don't think, yet tonight. And we should be right, because this is like a big thing of what happens if, right? I mean, this is why I think we're talking so much about the Michigan Senate race. One of many reasons is how important it is, as Kristen has noted earlier, for Democrats if they want to take back the Senate, which is a real question mark, and for them, a bit of an uphill climb.
Yeah, guys, and even though there are so many things that are going the Democrats' way when it comes to this election, the way this map lays itself out to start is not in their favor. There are far more Republican seats that are what we believe to be uncontested for them to start with. And keep in mind, of course, they're already starting with the majority. So almost everything has to go right for Democrats on election night for them to win back the majority. I want to show you how that could potentially play out. Let's say the states they need to win for sure are the states that they actually already have control over. And that's a state like Georgia, where Republicans do have some hope there, but Democrats feel that Jon Ossoff has put himself in a good position to continue to win there. New Hampshire is an open seat in this election cycle, but Democrats feel pretty confident that Chris Pappas, who's their candidate there, is going to be able to hold on to things. Now, I've purposely left Michigan out of this conversation to start with. That's one of the states that Democrats currently control. They don't control any of these other states that are currently contested. So that means they need to start flipping seats if they want to win back the majority. The place they feel most confident about is North Carolina, where Roy Cooper is the incumbent governor there. He is off to a strong start. They feel very confident about that. How about Maine? Now that they don't have to deal with Graham Plattner anymore, they feel more confident about Maine. You see things starting to shape up better for the Democrats. But we're in a position here where they still need wins. Could there be a win in Ohio, where Sherrod Brown, who is a former senator coming back to run again, is running a strong campaign? But what about Texas? Democrats feel confident about Texas. They always feel confident about Texas. Now, all of a sudden, we have a situation here. Let's say they win Iowa. Let's say they even win in Alaska. Look where we're set up here. That would be enough to do it. But what if Alaska ends up in the hands of Republicans? Even if they were to win Michigan, well, if they won Michigan, that would be the deal. If they lose Michigan, 50-50, J.D. Vance cracks the tying vote.
Coming back to you, I promise. It's all super interesting. Ryan Nobles, thank you very much. We're going to have a lot more midterm primary coverage to get to. We will be back in just 60 seconds with a whole lot more. Welcome to NBC's special coverage. A big primary night in America, the biggest one left before the midterms coming up real quick in November. I'm Hallie Jackson.
And I'm Kristen Welker. Voters in 5 states casting their ballot to decide who will be on the ballot in November and ultimately which party will control Congress.
We are watching a lot tonight, right? But one of the biggest through lines is what is the future of the Democratic Party? What does it look like? You've got some insurgent progressives challenging establishment Democrats, and the epicenter of that fight tonight, this marquee race, too early to call right now, in Michigan, the Senate primary here, where Abdul Al-Sayed, who's backed by progressive leaders like Senator Bernie Sanders, AOC, he's taken on Congresswoman Haley Stevens, backed by more establishment figures in the state and beyond. Again, too early to call on this one, but boy, a lot of folks watching very closely, including Steve Kornacki, who we'll get to in a second.
Yeah, we sure will. It's a dramatic one. This race will face the winner of that race will face the Trump-backed Republican Mike Rogers in November. This is a must-win race in November for Democrats if they want to take back the Senate.
The power of the president's endorsement also at play in the Republican primary for Michigan governor. You just saw it there. John James projected to win. Also taking on the Democrat projected to win, Jocelyn Benson, handily moving on to get the primary there. Back to the progressive versus establishment battle on the left as well. NBC News can project Cindy Holscher, the more progressive candidate in the state of Kansas, is projected to win the Democratic Party's nomination there, defeating State Senator Ethan Corson. He had been backed by the state's current governor, popular Democrat Governor Laura Kelly.
That's right. And Holscher will face State Senate President Ty Masterson, who rode President Trump's endorsement to victory in a very crowded field. Kansas is arguably the top gubernatorial pickup opportunity for Republicans in November.
In Missouri, NBC News can project Congressman Wesley Bell will survive the primary challenge from his left, what was a rematch from a couple years ago from former Congresswoman Cori Bush.
But in a win for progressives, NBC News can project that William Lawrence, who was backed by Senator Bernie Sanders, will win the Democratic primary for Michigan's 7th district.
So that's a brand new one. Yeah, and that's super interesting. We're going to get into that with Steve in just a second here. We're going to talk about that. We are, by the way, we should note as we tip past 11 o'clock Eastern, starting to get results from Washington where the polls have just closed. Washington's a little bit unique. Every primary candidate is on the same ballot. Top 2 advance to the general elections. These are top 2 primaries. We're watching for results out of the one that everybody's got their eye on here, right? Washington 3, the 3rd congressional district, where Democratic Congresswoman Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez faces a tough challenge in a district President Trump won in 2024. John Braun, the Republican state senator, is looking to advance. He's been endorsed by President Trump. Circle this one. We're talking about this from now till November.
Yeah, we certainly are. And Steve Kornacki joins us from the big board. Steve, we got to get right to Michigan. What do you have there?
Yeah, you were talking about that 7th congressional district race, and there it is. This is sort of a microcosm in a way of the dynamics we've been talking about in the Senate race, where Lawrence, the very progressive, candidate here of the left, is going to win this, has won this primary, and the context is Trump won the district. This is a swing district that Trump won. Lawrence, a candidate of the left, will be the Democratic nominee against Tom Barrett, who was elected in 2024 in this district. So the question we've been asking statewide of if El-Sayed wins the Democratic primary, what would that mean in terms of a swing state that Donald Trump won and the implications for Senate control? Well, we're seeing this now. We're going to see this at the House level in the same state, because this 7th district, around Lansing and then Livingston County, they're getting closer to Detroit. You are going to see a candidate very much part of that left-wing insurgency who's won this primary in a Trump district.
So what about the big Senate race there, Steve? Are we getting in any more vote there?
Yeah, we did. So we're up to 44%, and you can see El-Sayed's lead now has moved up to close to 4 points, meaning, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I think we just got a big batch from somewhere in the last.
Yeah, we just got 7,000 votes from Macomb.
We got more Macomb. Okay, so let's go over to Macomb County, and this must have been Election Day vote that we got out of Macomb. This was El-Sayed friendly Election Day vote.
Yeah, he wins that one a little bit. There was also a Kent update that he won a little bit more.
Okay, let's go through both of those. So Macomb County, again, big suburban county, more blue-collar suburban county, north of Detroit here. One of those places that Stevens needs to be winning tonight. The vote that's come in, I believe, the update that just came in was Election Day vote, was very friendly to El-Sayed. So Stevens is going to need to do significantly better with what's left here. I do think there's a fair amount of vote by mail that's left here. Adam can check on that. But in the meantime, we had set this up before, what was going on in Kent County, where we are now up. This is Grand Rapids area. We're now up to 2/3 of the vote in Kent. And you can see, if you remember before when you checked in, Stevens was running at about 30. She's moved up to 32. We said there was a lot of vote by mail to come. Two things about that. When you last checked in, she was actually losing the vote by mail. And we said that's catastrophic for her. That vote by mail that we were looking at the last time you checked in was from the city of Grand Rapids. So that's as friendly an area within Kent as El-Sayed's going to have. So what happened was we've gotten more vote by mail from outside Grand Rapids, and Stevens has been winning it, although not by landslide margins, okay? Because El-Sayed, we showed you, he's winning Election Day votes by landslide margins. So what it's meant is that as more vote has been counted here, it's been Stevens friendly. It's not been that Stevens friendly. She's been able to move up 2 points here, okay? But again, we said in a county like this, she wants to be in the 40s, right? She needs to be in the 40s. So she's got to move up a lot, she's got to move up a lot more. Now, there are still some votes to come here. But that vote by mail right now that we're seeing, at least right now, is not trending necessarily as pro-Stevens as we've seen in some other places, and as she would need to reach that number. So that's Kent. And again, in Macomb, her number's right now a bit low right there. Did we find out what that was? But Adam is still working on it. Okay. So again, what that means statewide, 44%, just checking in, 3.5. We did. Again, this means we did get another update that just was favorable to Stevens. Where was that from?
That was from Oakland County. That was another 7,000 votes.
Okay, yeah. So now Oakland, what's been happening here is a lot of this we've seen now is coming in at sort of one municipality at a time that's reporting out. That's what you're seeing. And you're getting all types of vote kind of all at once. And now this is two or three municipalities in a row that have reported out here that have been friendly to Stevens. So Stevens' margin now, remember it's been sitting at about 2 points in this county. Now it's ticked up to 4 points with these last two that have come in. So again, that's 5/6 of the vote in Oakland County. Now a 4-point advantage for Stevens. And we said she wants to be in the 50s here, in this county. It's a must-win county for her, certainly, but also a county where I think she needs to have some degree of a pad here. And it's interesting because she's now moved this up to 4 points. Can she move that? Can she move that further? We're trying to figure out what the remaining municipalities are there, and if there's the opportunity for her to do that. Because again, what that did statewide was when you came to me, it had gone up to 4 for Al Sayed. That Oakland update knocks it down to 3.5. And anything else big, significant in the last couple minutes?
No.
Those are the most recent.
Right. I feel really bad. I had a follow-up question for you, but my mouth was stuffed full of fruit snacks, and I wasn't able to speak. So I'm sorry about that, Steve. But you covered it handily.
Get some water. You covered it all. We're going to come back to you in just a few minutes.
Appreciate you. Steve was talking about Michigan 7, and this is such an interesting one because I will tell you that, we've talked about the dynamic here. Will Lawrence and then the two other candidates who, the question was, were they going to split this more centrist lane? Mm-hmm. And there are those close to Bridget Brink who say, you can point the finger at Alyssa Slotkin if Will Lawrence doesn't pull this out in a general election. She came in, endorsed Matt Mosdom, sort of, I think it was just last month, and fury, I think.
There was a lot of anger.
And there's a lot of background here, right? This is Alyssa Slotkin's old district. This was a seat that President Trump only won by 1 point in the 2024 election, but it was enough to bring Tom Barrett along with him. Republicans view this as one of the most important seats on the map for them if they have any hope of holding on to the majority. I have to tell you, the Republicans I talked to today were rooting for William Lawrence. He was perhaps the candidate they cared the most about on the map today, and this played out exactly the way they were hoping. And there was a lot of questions about Slotkin's decision to get into this race, not just because she did not endorse Brink, but also she chose not to endorse the woman in this race, which is something that she's traditionally been very supportive of Democratic women running in these campaigns. At the very least, what it did was it meant that all the Democrats in the establishment side, the more moderate lane, were not coalescing around one candidate to take on Lawrence. Lawrence, for background, co-founder of the Sunshine Movement. That's a very aggressive climate change organization that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and others are very close to. Think Green New Deal, which is associated with the Sunshine Movement. So this is a huge win for progressives, but it's also something that Republicans hope in what is maybe the swingiest district on the map is going to help them.
And Garrett, when you talk to Lawrence, he's not signaling that he feels the need to calibrate in the general election. I mean, this is someone who, when you talk to him, is very clear. This is his agenda, and he doesn't feel the need to moderate in order to win over moderate.
No, I mean, he spent his career as a professional activist. And to Congressman Graves' point from earlier, I mean, this is one of the challenges for Democrats. Are they going to be for something, or are they going to be just against Donald Trump? William Lawrence, whatever else you think of his politics, knows what he's for. He's campaigned very openly on what he's for. But to the point Ryan was making about how closely Republicans are watching this map, here's another indication of how closely they're watching this district. Tom Barrett is someone who President Trump, who haven't actually talked about a lot tonight, has given a lot of leeway. Tom Barrett's been one of the people who's voted for these Iran war powers resolutions. I think he even introduced one of them time and time again. Him and actually John Braun, who we just mentioned in Washington 3 district, who's been very anti-tariff, are people who are in these very competitive House races who Donald Trump has endorsed and then kind of turned a little bit of an uncharacteristic blind eye to their apostasies. And so to the degree that he's disengaged from the midterms, which we can talk about more if you want, he is at least being strategically disengaged from going after people on issues where you might see him otherwise, want his pound of flesh from Republicans who aren't doing his thing.
You can't dangle strategic disengagement and not expect us to talk about it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, look, we could talk about it on the Senate map, too. I mean, look at Susan Collins is another perfect example, right? I mean, Susan, and the president's joked about this, that she is not with him as often as he wants.
Yes.
But
She's
she is
going to
with
vote
him.
against his attorney general pick.
That's right. And you haven't heard a peep out of him about it. You know why? Because she's with him a hell of a lot more than Troy Jackson would.
And he probably will still get confirmed.
Democrat would. Yeah, that's right. Well, and that's a decision for leadership, which you can let Susan Collins take a walk on that vote because it doesn't matter to your total. He's still going to get across the finish line. And so to the degree that the president is involved in these midterms, as he is in some cases a great deal, he's also choosing strategically to be hands off on some of these races where he can do more harm than good.
But boy, if it is in fact Abdul El-Sayed who's going to pull it out in this Michigan Senate race, how many times, how many campaign, rallies, speeches, events have you been at where the president rails against what he sees as, the threat of communism?
Oh, my gosh. Look, I've talked to a number of national Republican strategists, none who are working specifically on this race, but who all see that if El-Sayed is the candidate here, this is going to be one of the nastiest statewide races we have seen across the board. I think you will see elements of Islamophobia. You will see his background being an issue. There's no limit to sort of how deep that rabbit hole could go.
Well, that's why it's so fascinating, I think, Ryan, to hear Senator Sanders talk about and very affirmatively answer Hallie, yes, I will back Hallie Stevens. I will be a part of the unity movement, which Congresswoman Debbie Dingell laid out.
Meanwhile, Cori Bush, can I pull this up? I think she spoke in Missouri. She's, of course,
very
the progressive. Who just lost to
That's a little on
Congressman
brand for Cori Bush, though.
Wesley Bell. Yeah, I'm trying to find this.
But it's also, while you look for that, it's also on brand for Bernie Sanders. I mean, Sanders, throughout his career, is very strident about his political positions, but he's also someone who I think has been very careful to say, to get 80% or to get 70% of what he wanted. He endorsed Joe Biden very quickly. He was very clear about the threat whether he perceives it from Donald Trump.
Endorsed Kamala Harris right away.
Exactly. Get the most you can from the moment. Don't, voting. Don't throw somebody overboard because they're not with you 100%.
But before, of course, we can get to any discussion around unity in a race, you have to have a candidate in the race, and we don't have one yet. As our team in the field knows, we get back to the ground in Michigan. Julie Sirkin and Shaq Brewster are there. They're posted up at both of these candidate headquarters. And Julie, let me start with you. What's the vibe check there from the Stevens camp?
Well, no cheese board update. I'm sorry about that. Sorry to disappoint. But we did move in here with about half the room. They're still split. Half is sitting in the other room where we were at, watching still intently as Steve Kornacki and the rest of all of you break down all of this reporting. The only time I heard cheers in the room the entire night was when Steve shared that Hallie Stevens had some success with those vote by mail numbers coming in. That was the only Hallie Stevens chant that we have heard in the hours that we've been here. So listen, the vibe is what it is. People have drank, people have eaten, and people are waiting now to see what their fate will be. And certainly this is going to be an absolute reckoning for the Democratic Party, especially if it goes in the direction that Hallie Stevens doesn't want it to go in for her opponent, essentially. Because in a state like Michigan, this is different than New York City. So when Democratic leaders and establishment point the finger at the coastal states, saying those are different than the middle of the country, are they really? Because the Democrats that I've been speaking to yesterday and today, even some who voted for Hallie Stevens. I'll tell you about one guy I spoke to, a black voter. He's an older gentleman. He's lived in Detroit his entire life. He told me the reason he voted for Stevens was because, one, he likes her, but two, Gretchen Whitmer endorsed her, a very last-minute endorsement. But he likes the socialist direction that the Democratic Party is going in. So Democratic leaders are really going to have to figure out how to walk that tightrope to be able to elect candidates in the primaries that then can win in a general, especially in a place like Michigan. We are already getting statements from a bunch of Republican flags on all of these races. For example, in Michigan's 7th district with William Lawrence, we got a statement that was already ready to go, calling him a radical socialist. Republicans are waiting to get these kinds of candidates. Certainly Mike Rogers is as well. He's with John James tonight, expected to be watching what happens here, not even having his own party, because certainly he feels very confident tonight and going into November. Hallie?
All right. Julie, thank you. First of all, fantastic reporting. Next time, we do want an update on the cheese board, though. I think I
was chewing the M&Ms this time. I'm sorry.
Yes, Hallie's chewing M&Ms, so I'll take it. Julie, thank you so much. Shaq, let me head out to you. Look, Shaq, this is closer certainly than the polls indicated it would be. We don't know how this is going to turn out. This is still a live ball, incredibly dynamic and dramatic. What is the mood there? Are they on pins and needles?
Well, Kristen, when you mentioned that this is a closer margin than many people felt, I think you're feeling that here in this room. I'm not going to say it's anxiety that you're feeling just yet, but when I talked about that optimism that so many people came into this room feeling, that is certainly fading. I just went around, talked to a couple of people. One person who was a volunteer, knocked on hundreds of doors, has been volunteering for the campaign for months now, said, I'm trying my best to keep the optimism. Someone in the background behind her said, I don't know how to feel right now. They're watching what's going on right now very closely on the screen. They're still cheering when those results come in, but they're not getting the night so far that they were expecting when they walked in. Another person said, hey, I thought I was going to be out of here by 10 p.m. That is clearly not the case. I think the message, though, and the sentiment that you're hearing when you talk to folks is that this is not over. They see this as a long fight ahead. They are very confident in their candidate. And I think one other piece of it is that they see this in the arc of the progressive movement, so to speak. A recent cheer that you heard, it wasn't when new results came in, but it was when the race was called for William Lawrence. You guys were just talking about that at the table there. They consider him a progressive fighter. As other progressives are winning in other parts of the country or even in other parts of the state, you're hearing big cheers from folks here. They see this as a movement. They see Abdul El-Sayed as part of that movement that started it for many of them with Bernie Sanders, that continued with his 2018, El-Sayed's 2018 gubernatorial run, and this is a continuation of it. I've seen several Zohran Mamdani shirts here in this crowd. This is bigger than this one Senate seat for them. And that's why I think you have the mood that they're willing to wait a little bit, even if the margin ends up being closer than many of them expected when they came in.
Okay, Shaq Brewster live for us there at headquarters for Abdul Sayed. Thank you very much.
Well, it has been a major night of results, and we still have much more ahead. And, of course, Steve Kornacki's back at the big board with brand new data. Plus, we'll show you that fiery statement from former Congressman Cori Bush. Hallie was talking about that. We'll be right back with all of that and much more.
We are back, keeping a close eye on that critical Michigan Senate primary on the Democratic side. You're looking at both campaign headquarters here for Abdul El-Sayed, Hallie Stevens as well. There's a lot of action, except we can't see it because it's happening as the votes are being tallied, and we don't know what those results are yet. We are dying to know. We're going to be checking in with Steve Kornacki throughout the night. He is joining us now from the big board. Talk us through it, Steve. Let's start with, where we are statewide in Michigan, and I got a flag. Welker is going to be joining us in a second. If you saw an empty seat, she's here. She's walking into the studio. I don't want you to think she left us. I just wanted to flag that. Steve, take it away.
Yeah, I mean, look, statewide in the Democratic primary, we're at half the vote right now. In that margin, again, which is a little bit more just ticked in right there, 3.5 points for El-Sayed over Stevens. I'll tell you what we're trying to figure out right now is how many votes we expect out of the city of Detroit and what kind of plurality we think that Hallie Stevens can get out of that. Because the numbers from Stevens out of Detroit so far for her have been really good. And I'm just looking at it right now. It's a frustrating thing. We can't show you in the board, unfortunately. We can show you the county, but not within the county. In Detroit right now, Stevens is getting 69% of the vote, and El-Sayed is getting 27% of the vote, okay? So that translates right now into a plurality of nearly 25,000 votes for Stevens, and there are a lot of votes still to come here, okay? Now, a lot of that, the vote by mail is doing some heavy lifting in that Detroit number I'm giving you right there. Again, that vote by mail is so friendly to Stevens. The Election Day vote, though, that has been counted so far, she's winning. Not by any kind of margin, that she's getting the vote by mail by, but she is winning it. And so we're trying to get a handle here on what we expect the final vote to be out of Detroit and what kind of plurality that could ultimately be for Stevens, right? Because right now she's trailing 27,000 statewide. But if she's romping in Detroit, if that's what ends up happening, okay, and this is a place where I should back up a second. We keep talking about the Election Day vote powering El-Sayed. This is the one place where, it's not going to help Stevens like the election, like the early vote is, but she's doing, I think, so well with the black vote that she may be able to do good still with the Election Day vote there and really get a margin out of Detroit, okay? And could that margin, right, how much, could that margin eat into this? What El-Sayed is leading, by statewide right now. Other things that we're looking at, other big sort of places that we're looking right now that loom as key, Genesee County, where Flint is. This is a pretty big piece of real estate. About 4% of the vote statewide is going to come out of here. This has, outside of Wayne, this has the second largest concentration of black voters in Michigan. So again, what we're telling you in Detroit, it applies not quite as dramatically, but it applies to Flint and to Genesee County, and we're just kind of getting started there with the vote, 23% that's in. In Saginaw County here, again, there's a substantial, not as much as Flint, certainly not as much as Detroit, but there is a meaningful black population there, especially in a Democratic primary. Quarter of the vote, Stevens there leading, by a double-digit margin. Opportunities for Stevens in these places to post pluralities that could really eat into what you're seeing from El-Sayed right there. We're also trying to get a handle on what we've been showing you in a place like Grand Rapids, Kent County, where El-Sayed got huge numbers out of the city of Grand Rapids. That included the vote by mail in Grand Rapids, and where the rest of the county and vote by mail is kind of trickling in. Her number's sitting at 33%, with 71%. That's got to go up for her. But the variable in this, I think, really is what she can get out of Detroit and what Wayne ends up looking like at the end of this. And I just say that because, pull it back up there. This is what the county looks like, what Wayne County looks like right now, Detroit and everything else that's been counted so far. And you can see the advantage she's getting there. And to put that in some context, right, we keep talking about this Gretchen Whitmer when she was elected in 2018 in the Democratic, when she won the Democratic primary in 2018, she got 44% of the vote in Wayne, right? And you see where Stevens is running with that right now. And again, Wayne is, I keep, I go blue in the face saying, it's 1/5 of the vote statewide. So that kind of a difference, when we're using Whitmer as kind of a benchmark here for Stevens, and we're saying she's hitting it in this county, she's close in this county, she's just, maybe Kent, she's not so much, we'll see. But if you're getting anything like this, right, in a county where Whitmer did that makes that as they say at the horse track, that forgives a lot of sins. And so that's, I mean, we're trying to get that the Detroit thing. We're working on it. We want to get a handle on that. But I said, whenever it was, an hour, 2 hours ago, if a bunch of other things could kind of connect for Stevens and come into focus, it really could come down to Wayne, and it really could come down to Detroit. And I'm looking at this and seeing that opportunity for her.
So, Steve, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but based on how much we have out of Wayne right now, what do you think it looks like in terms of when you will have enough to have an even clearer picture?
That's the thing I know least, because Wayne's full of surprises and full of disappointments, right, in terms of the timing. Again, what's in my mind, 2024 Democratic primary, 5 a.m. 20.
We're just, Steve.
Okay, that's a good reality.
But I will tell you, though, the general election in 24, a more complicated election, they got done by 3, so maybe,
Is it? Can I ask you about the statewide number? If we can go back to statewide really quickly. Is it interesting to you that Mallory McMorrow, the numbers that she has is about, earlier I think it was more than the gap between Abdul El-Sayed and Hallie Stevens?
Yeah, I mean, it's right there. 46-4, 49-9, it's 3-5, and it's 3-7. And a lot of where that's coming from is, the vote by mail. Folks who voted early, I think, and we see her getting some double. We just did one county where she's getting double digits in the vote by mail.
Yeah. We also have pulled up a graphic, I think we did it a couple minutes ago, but of incumbents who are facing primary challenges. And there's an outstanding one in Michigan in the 13th district. Can you take us there, Steve? This is Shri Tanadar, obviously the incumbent here, up against Donovan McKinney. Again, establishment versus progressive. This is that graphic. Also an age story, I think a generational story. I think Tanadar is 71, McKinney's 34. What's going on in that district? Because that's also a story of let's wait on Wayne County, right?
Yeah, Wayne and Detroit. And so what you see is, remember, we got that big batch of vote by mail in Detroit that Stevens did so well in the Senate race. It helped Tanadar, the embattled incumbent here, who in the initial votes that had come in this district was trailing. That vote by mail batch from Detroit helped him. It put him ahead of Donovan McKinney. The challenge for Tanadar here is that a lot of what's left here, largely what's left here in Detroit, is going to be, as we say, that election day vote.
Right.
And we've seen those DSA candidates do best with the election day vote as opposed to the mail. If that dynamic kind of obtains here, then McKinney's got a real path.
All right, Steve Kornacki, stay right where you are. We're going to come back to you in just a few minutes. We really appreciate it, Steve. Thank you so much. Let's head out to Sahil Kapoor, who's with us at Bell headquarters in Missouri. So, Sahil, what are you hearing there?
Kristen, they are blasting the music here at Wesley Bell's election night watch party. There's a lot of joy here. His supporters are partying. They're thrilled with his victory. Just how swift and brutal it was. This was expected to be a close race just 2 years ago. It was mid-single digits. This time, Wesley Bell won it decisively. We called it early, and his margin is pretty enormous right now. He gave a speech thanking his team, thanking his supporters. He took some swipes at the national narrative, the pundits. Talked about things going on in the coast. He was referring to New York, things that are not happening over here. He rejects, and his campaign manager told me they reject this national frame that this is about Democratic socialists versus so-called establishment candidates. Their view is if you're a good candidate, if you're here, if you have a connection to the voters, that all that stuff doesn't matter. And yes, Cori Bush did tap into some headwinds, let's say, or rather tailwinds in terms of where the Democratic mood is going. She did not win. She is not happy about this. I spoke to her a few hours ago. She literally said Wesley Bell to her is a Republican, and she would not support him if he's the nominee. She gave a speech, a concession speech of sorts, where she tore into him even further. Let's play some of that.
It pisses me off that for the next 2 years, this community will be represented by someone that didn't deem you valuable enough to show up to one candidate forum where there were audience comments, even though I showed up to every one. Because I can speak up for my record and I can speak against the lies and the smears. But he ran a whole campaign on smears and nothing about what he's done because he hasn't done anything, and nothing about what he will do because he doesn't know. But this really isn't even about him, you all.
Now, just a few minutes ago behind me, I spoke to Wesley Bell. I asked him about Cori Bush's intense criticism of him and asked him whether he wants or needs her support this fall. He didn't directly answer. He kind of took a beat. He took a moment to think about what he wanted to say. He said it's the end of a very contentious primary. He wants to give everyone, including her, some space and grace after this result. Those are his words. Fortunately for Wesley Bell, and this is my analysis, not him talking, he does not need Cori Bush's support because this is a safe blue district. There's no realistic chance a Republican wins. The healing process here means a lot less than it does in a place like Michigan, where whoever ends up losing, or rather winning that primary, is going to need the support of their opponent in order to bring the party together and win that competitive safe. This is St. Louis, safe blue district. Wesley Bell is headed back to Congress.
All right, Sahil, thank you.
Don't be mad. We weren't trying to wrap you that quickly, friend. We would have let you talk, but we got some breaking news with Steve Kornacki at the big board. Because, Steve, we're told there's been a bunch of Detroit ballots that have just come in. We've been waiting for some of these. No, was that to me? Did Adam say it wasn't?
No, sorry. You're picking up on our ongoing. I apologize.
Okay, my bad. Stress.
We did. We just got a bunch more from Detroit, and I'm looking at the Detroit results right here. That's why I'm kind of leaning over here. But we've got. We're getting close to done in Detroit right now. We got a big batch there, about 20,000 of the election day vote, and Stevens 62 in Detroit citywide, 62% for Stevens, 34% for Al Sayed. So a 28-point margin for her. But she might have just that might be about it for Detroit. I'm hesitating because that number is low. Their turnout in 2018. A lower interest primary statewide was higher. It was 93,000. That adds up to about 85,000. So that's lower, and even substantially lower than back in 2018. Now, there'd been talk that, hey, Stevens is doing well with the black vote, but was enthusiasm, was turnout, was energy going to be an issue? But we're just trying to make sure that is actually it for Detroit, or if there is some more still to come. There might still be some outstanding votes right there, but it's looking at a 28.62-34 margin there for Stevens right now. Again, 62% for Stevens. We said when Gretchen Whitmer ran in 2018, she got 36% of the vote out of Detroit. There is still, though, a ton more to come out of Wayne itself. These numbers we've been getting in out of Detroit, as you can see, have moved us. We were sitting there in the 20s. We've moved north of 40% right now. There is a lot more to Wayne than just Detroit. It's 55-42. I don't know if you can see this, but if you wanted to look inside of Wayne County, these are the inner suburbs, the other cities that are in there.
I feel like I'm doing something illegal. This is wow. Seeing Steve's notes, my God, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So we're trying to figure out which of those, because the political kind of complexion of those varies dramatically. There are some big places in there that could be good for Stevens. We've talked about places like Dearborn Heights, Hamtramck, that would be very good for Al Sayed. So that becomes the other question. Wayne at 42%, though, it really is coming around.
So where are we overall, Steve? What's the statewide look like?
Yeah, there it is. It's been hovering at that 3-point margin or so. This is now a little bit inside of 3 points.
Oh, wow.
Al Sayed and Stevens, a 23,000 vote margin. So I think it really is. We could show you places where, I think this one here, I think Stevens could get something, good out of this for her, right. With more to come. That might be true in Saginaw as well. Oakland, now we're up to 90%. Again, look, now Stevens has done better and better as that vote has come in. These municipalities have come in late in Oakland. Her margin now up to 5 points over Al Sayed. We said she wants to get into the 50s. She has now gotten into the 50s in Oakland County, next door in Macomb County. Look, again, the skew here earlier, I think, was toward a Al Sayed favorable type of vote, municipality potentially. We still have more than half the vote to come in Macomb. You're starting to see Stevens pick that up a bit. Again, she wants to get about where she is in Oakland, in Macomb as well. So she might, let's see as that remaining half comes in, if that's where it is. But we have so much elsewhere in the state right now.
Yeah.
We're now up to 56%. Again, we're at less than half of Wayne. So again, just Wayne itself, if we suddenly got the rest of Wayne County in right now, this 56 would come, we'd be at 70% of the vote in statewide. Yeah. We'd have a clear sense of it. So really coming around to it.
Forgive me, Steve, if you mentioned it and I missed it, but what do we know about Dearborn?
Yeah, so we had earlier in the night, we had a same-day update from Dearborn. It was overwhelmingly, it was exactly what you expect with Al Sayed. That's what I'm trying to find out. Is there more from Dearborn, Dearborn Heights, Hamtramck? Those are the three I'm particularly interested in there. That were honestly, and I apologize. It's just, this is the nature of Michigan elections. It's just it's decentralized, and the vote mode reporting varies so much that it's a lot of this doing results.
No need to apologize, Steve.
Apologizing for?
I mean, come on, you're lighting the world on fire. Come on. No, we're going to check back in with you, Steve. It's great. It's great, and we're getting closer. We're getting closer to clarity.
Second by second, minute by caffeine-fueled minute.
Yes.
And Ryan Nobles and Garrett Hake have been with us through all of it. It's so interesting here. And forgive me, Steve did say that. It's just at all, the counties
there's a lot.
Because when you look at Wayne County, sort of where this vote is going to come from, the Stevens camp is just such a big spotlight there. And, I think that coming into tonight, the momentum seemed to be with Abdul Al-Sayed, right? And I think regardless of what happens tonight, I think there's some question marks about how accurate, some of the numbers were around.
I mean, you look at some of the statewide polling that we were looking at in Michigan over the last week or two, and many of these surveys had Abdul Al-Sayed winning by 10 to 12 points. I mean, I talked to a Republican strategist today who told me that some of the Republican polling had Al-Sayed up significantly. I mean, this is the really wonky stuff, but we're pushing midnight, so that's who's still watching. This is one of those things you're going to look at later and say, what are we missing here? What is that industry missing? Because even the campaign data is poor. Who's not picking up the phone? Is it those African American voters in Wayne County? Is it working class voters? Is it the young people who Sayed says is the target of his campaign? Because not having that accurate picture isn't just a media story. It also, I think, shapes how a lot of these narratives and how a lot of the campaigns approach these races and their strategies.
So, Ryan, when I talked to the Stevens campaign in the days leading up to today, when they looked at the polls, they said our voters were very undercounted in these polls. They talked about seniors. They did talk about African Americans as well. And it does raise a lot of questions about what happened, why. We still don't know how this race is going to turn out. We should stress that point. But this is certainly a very different picture.
I think it is right now at 11:40, before this race is called. But if Al Sayed ends up winning, I don't think we're going to spend too much time questioning the margin of victory.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot more about what he's
not going to say anything about the margin of victory. Republican.
That's right. Exactly. I mean,
I disagree. I think if El Sayed squeaks it out, Republicans will say, this guy's so toxic, he could barely even win his own primary. You know what I mean? They're still salivating to face El Sayed, whether he wins by 10 tonight or by 2. Right. But, the smaller the number, the more confident they will feel that this was all that much messier for Democrats.
I guess that's right. I'll just anchor privilege on the last word, which is, I don't know that that's in the top 3 things that they're going to go after.
And also,
let's meet again in November.
But you also have to talk about the overwhelming number of Democrats that came out and voted today.
Yeah.
I mean, if Al Sayed ends up winning, if Stevens ends up winning, you have to imagine that 75 to 90% of the people that voted for them today are also going to vote for them in the general election. There is clearly a lot of Democratic enthusiasm behind both of these candidates right now. And whoever squeaks it out, I think, has headwinds behind them going into the general election.
All right. Go ahead.
I'm just going to say, the other part of this, too, is that neither of those Republican candidates for the statewide offices are world beaters. Yeah. I'm sorry. John James lost 2 statewide races. A lot of Republicans are frustrated that he gave up his House seat to run for the governorship right now. Mike Rogers underperformed Trump by 120,000 votes in a race that Trump won. Republicans will say he's a much better candidate now. He's raised more money. All that may be true, but he doesn't have Trump at the top of the ticket pulling them along. They need Abdul Sayed. They need somebody to scare Republican voters off the couch.
Now you can have the anchor last word.
Well, I was actually going to go to former Congressman Garrett Graves, who's joining us, along with Ashley Etienne, former communications director for Vice President Harris, and a Meet the Press contributor. And Congressman, let me ask you to jump in on that point there, right?
Look, I think that this is a little bit different race at this point. You can go back and look. You had back in President Biden's race, he won by 3 points. Governor Whitmer won by 11 points. President Trump carried the state by 1.4. This is a different situation. You have a Republican candidate that just walked through the primary, didn't get beat up. You've got Stevens and El Sayed that are beating one another up right now, and they're going to come out damaged goods after this primary. And you also have John James at the top of the ticket in the state of Michigan. I think it's a little bit different dynamic this time. I think it's a little bit more biased toward Republicans, and it's going to be interesting to see how the Democrats try and patch things up between their two distinct factions.
Actually, how do you see this, and are you surprised by how close this race is between Al Sayed and Hallie Stevens?
No, I'm not surprised. I mean, as much as Republicans would like to make a lot out of the socialism, which El Sayed is not, doesn't identify as a socialist, we're not that far apart on really the core issues between those two factions. But just to get back to the congressman's point, the biggest difference is the conditions. Donald Trump was on the offense in 2024. Donald Trump is on the defense now. I mean, you've got a situation where the economy is in the tank. That people all across the state are feeling like the economy is not working for them. That 73% of the American public believe that the president is not focused on their priorities. And then you've got these candidates from Rogers to also James who are lockstep with President Trump. So the conditions are very different, and the conditions can make the difference in these races. And I think that can't go understated. Here's the other thing I've noticed that's a factor here is that money is not playing as major of a factor as we thought it was going to play. You got a situation where James was outspent by Johnson. Johnson spent maybe $26 million. James spent $1.9 million. You got a situation where Stevens had AIPAC dumping more than $32 million into this race. And the money is not making the difference. And that's the part I find most interesting. And we also saw that in Illinois in the last primary, where money is less of a factor than it once was. Now what's driving these decisions is the conditions that the American people are facing.
Okay, and let me hit the pause button for 1 second, because I think we have a little bit of an update here for folks. And this is in the Michigan Senate race. We are now saying it is too close to call. This marquee race that we've been watching throughout the night, Abdul Al Sayed, the progressive, running against Hallie Stevens, the moderate establishment candidate. This race too close to call. 57% of the vote in. We've been watching it closely all night long, Hallie.
A nail biter indeed, and now it's decision desk official, if you will, that it is in fact very close. Ashley, let me ask you this, because to this point we were talking about earlier in the evening that I think is becoming salient tonight. We're looking at Abdul Al Sayed, Hallie Stevens here. If Al Sayed pulls it out, can you imagine the rallies for Michigan Democrats with Jocelyn Benson and Abdul Al Sayed? I mean, two, very different candidates, very different policies, and not a super straight through line there either.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can visually see it, but I think the real concern for me is what's going to happen with black voters. We've seen black voters who are overwhelmingly in support of Hallie Stevens. 67%, according to the Detroit Free Press, are supporting Stevens. We're seeing in Detroit where they're supporting her in big numbers. So there are a lot of folks within the Democratic Party that's saying that they're not going to support him if he actually wins. So that's going to be the question, whether or not Benson can bring those folks along, or whether or not Whitmer can get out into some of these Republican districts where you have disaffected Republicans and bring some of those people out to make up the difference for black voters. So it's going to be tricky and interesting to see how they make the numbers, how they make the math, I should say.
All right, guys, I want to head over to Garrett at the big board, his own big board.
Whoa.
You're looking at the way in which redistricting, and we've been following this story throughout the course of this entire midterm election cycle, has been impacting some of these races.
Yeah, so Ryan walked us through the Senate numbers, but in the House is still the chamber probably most likely to flip. And Republicans understood this from the jump, and they set out on this progress almost a year ago now to try to reshape the map in their favor, and it started with Texas. Texas Republicans redrew a map that had been fairly conservative for such a Republican-controlled state to try to squeeze a couple more seats out of it. Democrats countered very quickly with California, and then when the Supreme Court acted to really gut the Voting Rights Act, all of a sudden it put a lot of these southern states into play where Republicans began to target what had been majority African-American districts in those states. When it was all said and done, and it does appear to be all said and done for the cycle, the redistricting map looked like this. Republicans potentially picking up 3 to 5 seats in Texas, 2 to 4 seats in Florida, a couple of other states where they think they have a 1 or 2 seat opportunity to pick up the Democratic balance in California, and interestingly enough, in Utah. The net of this has been that it has made fewer seats competitive overall and more seats tilting more towards one party or another. All of this matters because we get used to seeing in these midterm years these big wave elections where dozens of seats change hands. That's much more difficult right now, and it makes states and it makes races like that 7th district seat in Michigan that we were talking about earlier, guys, all that much more important, because if you take just 1 or 2 of these competitive seats off the board, all of a sudden you're talking about, a race where we're talking about maybe 3 to 5 seats changing hands, 10 to 12 seats changing hands, and whoever's got the majority has a majority that may not be functional in the House, just like the one we're dealing with now.
That was good you walked over. I should have done that. He's always one up on me. He's always one step ahead of me.
But Ryan, as we look to November, there's this big debate. Democrats were feeling incredibly emboldened until some of these setbacks that Garrett just mapped out. When you think about the state of play, Democrats still have a path to winning the House.
Right.
But this has created more challenges.
No, there's no doubt about that. And, I would think under any other political circumstance, if you took what we were dealing with in this political environment and plopped it into 1992 or 1996, you'd be talking wave election. You'd be talking 20, 30 Democratic seats.
Yeah.
A lot of the experts that I talked to wonder if we are post-wave elections, that these districts have become so gerrymandered. They've been specifically drawn to only help one party over the other. And the number of battleground states continues to shrink, that a big night for Democrats may only be a 3-seat change in the margin, because there are just too many seats that are already at play. Now, Democrats are very aggressive. They're going after seats that are plus 13 Trump districts from 2024. That puts, 40 or 50 seats in play. But the idea that they're going to win all of those, especially after what Garrett laid out with redistricting, seems like a long shot. But I still haven't found a Democrat yet that doesn't feel confident that at least the House of Representatives will be theirs on election night.
Can I add, as we're talking about these battleground districts, places that are going to be really close, Michigan 8, the 8th congressional district there, something very interesting is happening. And I want to say if Steve Kornacki, I don't want to put him on the spot here on this, but as we pull him up together, this is a guy, actually, Garrett, to your point about Trump-backed candidates, Amir Hassan, Navy veteran, federal law enforcement officer, trailing to Thomas Smith and Alfred Lemo, and I believe Thomas Smith had dropped out of or suspended his campaign. So something sort of fascinating happening in this state that is, very close. Kristen McDonald-Rivet holds that. She won by 7 points 2 years ago. This is the
Democratic incumbent.
The incumbent. Thank you. Barely a Trump district. Talk about these as we talk about these really important battleground districts here. So I'd love to get Kornacki on that. And as we talk about some of these other key battlegrounds, this idea of incumbents facing primary challenges and how that looks.
Well, and the fact that going into tonight, Amir Hassan was the presumed, coming into this race very strong. He had the backing of President Trump. President Trump actually got some criticism within the Republican Party there for endorsing him, which is notable. But it is significant. He's now trailing. We have not called the race officially. But Steve Kornacki, what do you have on this Michigan 8 race?
Yeah, honestly, I've been so bogged down in the Senate. I'm looking at it right now, and Hassan endorsed by Trump right here. Obviously, you could see what a surprise it is. We don't have a picture in our system, for Smith in this race. Now, 45%. Let's just kind of go through, where this is coming from. This is a completed county right here, where Bay City is. and Hassan gets crushed right there in Midland County. We got half the vote in, and that's running about even right now. In Saginaw, Smith is way up. In Genesee County, it's consistent. I mean, you're seeing it across all four, all four counties right here. So yeah, this one kind of blindsided us tonight.
That's interesting.
With the Senate going on. So yeah.
Can I ask you, let's speak about that, talking about the Senate, let's go to that here. And this question about Steve, and I know you were talking about that a second ago.
Yeah.
If we have Detroit in on Wayne County, where else is Stevens looking at? Like, walk through what that looks like here for her in this critical county that we've been watching.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm starting to see here as we take a closer look. So Wayne County now ticking up to about, and I mean, this is close to 50%. If there's Detroit vote left, I don't think it's too much. It does not look like there's much left. So when you looked at this, when you look at Wayne County, the best opportunity for Stevens to go big was in Detroit. So if you're outside Detroit now, and we were just looking at this a minute ago, she was leading the countywide vote by 13. It's now come down, as you can see, by 8.5 points. How much more if you froze it here at about this with the vote that's left, she might get an additional plurality of about 15,000 votes out of Wayne. That might be being generous, but you can see if she did that, that would have cut in half the Al Sayed margin here. But then the question is, where else is she getting it from? Would she get that from? Where would she make that up? I mean, there are still a lot of votes that are left to come here, like we're saying in Saginaw. And in Flint, we're getting more out of Flint, if she's, out of Flint, out of Genesee. But again, if she's running at this, if she's winning Genesee at this margin and not getting a substantial double-digit margin out of it, that's not going to translate that's going to translate with what's left into an additional 3,000 votes or so, a plurality of about 3,000 more votes. We were just going through completed counties. There are a couple places where I think she's clearly hit. They're not huge, but they're noteworthy where she's hit, I think, what a benchmark would be for her. There are a number of other places, though, where it looks like she's falling just a little bit short of it and maybe in need of something a little bit bigger than she is currently getting out of Wayne County. Again, this is one of those places. I'm looking at Kent County here where Grand Rapids is. 85% is in right now. She's sitting at 34%. We talked about Washtenaw County. Now we're up to almost 80% of the vote right there. Ann Arbor. One thing is, as we say, that last thing that gets counted there, we think in Washtenaw would be the vote by mail from Ann Arbor. Right. Could that be a boost for her right there?
So, Steve, how much of Wayne is in right now?
Well, we think about half. We're at 48%. So we think the vote that's left in Wayne, I can give you a number because we did just get more right there. Yeah, we think there's about 160,000 votes, that are left in Wayne County, right? So, I mean, you could just see how that math would work. If there's 160,000 votes that are left in Wayne County, right? She's leading right now by 8.5 points. So generously, if you said she wins Wayne by 10 points, what would that be? That would be a plurality of 16,000 votes. That might be generous right now, but if you apply 16,000 votes to the deficit that she faces statewide right now, that leaves Al Sayed still up by 12,000. And then we're saying, okay, look, a prime opportunity for Stevens on this map coming right here, like in Genesee County, where Flint is. Well, with the numbers she's getting right there, what if she nets an additional 3,000 out of what she's getting right now? Maybe she knocks that down to 9,000. I'm giving you kind of her good places right here. I'm giving you maybe an optimistic number for her out of Wayne. She is still, there's not a ton to come, but she is, she's been closing strong with what we've had in Oakland County. She has an opportunity, I think, with what's left in Macomb County, a tough one to get a handle on right here. But again, Kent County, we did just get a little bit more of an update there. Now she's at 34.5. Again, trying to get, I think that's when you're trying to get over 40% if you're her. We got completed, Ottawa County. I can tell you something about this. This is decent size. This is where Holland, Michigan is. And give you some benchmarks that we established here, some loose benchmarks here for Ottawa County. Gretchen Whitmer, right? 2018, we've been saying, pretty good. What did Whitmer get here? She got 48. right? Stephen's sitting at 40. What did Joe Biden get? You know, he got 51. Stephen's sitting at 40. You know, we think this might be it in Ottawa County. Okay, so those are the kinds of things she's trying to compensate for here, and the place to compensate for it is Wayne County, with about half the vote in and a lot of Detroit.
Hey, Steve, in Washtenaw, the Ann Arbor, home of Ann Arbor, University of Michigan, Eastern Michigan, go Eagles. Only Eagles I'll cheer for. Sorry, I had to get one in. We're running out of time.
4 minutes left.
Isn't the vote by mail there likely to be students who aren't back on campus yet? I mean, wouldn't that potentially be more Al-Sayed friendly?
Say again,
Wouldn't that vote by mail and out of Ann Arbor, wouldn't you think that might be students who aren't back at college yet?
Well, generally what we've seen, and it's been kind of holding true here, has been that the vote by mail skews older just in terms of who takes the ballots, who sends them in. But in a college town, right, like Ann Arbor, where the adult population is so liberal, I think, too, along with the younger population, it raises the question. I don't expect to see the kind of disparity there that we've seen elsewhere. But I think, I think it's worth noting she's done the best with vote by mail, and that has recently been the last thing that comes in Washtenaw. But the idea that she's going to be winning that vote by mail by 50 points or something, I think demographically, no.
Okay. Steve, in the 40 seconds we have left, is now a good time to talk about the 2028 primaries? Well,
they might be started by the time Wayne County finishes counting.
Zing! On that note, like tradition we have here, one last word or final thought in the 30 seconds we have left. Steve, to you quickly.
Look,
Steve?
I mean, Stevens has made this a game tonight. She's gotten closer, I think, than a lot of people thought she was going to get. But that elusive final step for her, we'll see if that proves to be elusive for her.
Ryan.
Over 1 million Democratic votes in Michigan. Democratic enthusiasm, whether it's progressive or moderate, is sky high.
Republicans are showing a DQ strategy. They want to disqualify Democrats.
We're looking at a big challenge for Democrats to unify after tomorrow. This is a hard-fought race.
Let's meet again in November.
Yeah, thank you
Not until
so
then.
much, Garrett, Ryan, Ashley, and Congressman Graves. Thank you all for being here tonight.
And thank you all to all of you for watching. As always, we're bringing any big updates in tonight's marquee races when we get them. Of course, we've got much more ahead on NBC News, on NBCNews.com, and of course on Today and Nightly tomorrow. We'll see you then. Have a great night.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.